Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Hop Pole Position, and this is another week where we see a certain person who, it says Liam there, but it's not Liam. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Mr. Oliver Shillito, is it pronounced?
Shillito, correct
Yep.
you are, sir.
Awesome. Probably should have asked that before we went live. I thought so. I've seen your intro video on your channel, but my memory is shocking.
Yeah, it's alright.
Yeah, so here we are. I'm in my house, you're in your house. How about that?
A sign of the times.
Yes, how's your week been?
Isolated, to say the least.
Right.
We've just been on a little trip to Berlin to visit Head Audio. And it looks like we got out of there just in time because like the whole of Germany went into lockdown. And we did have some symptoms. We started kind of coughing a little bit, and there was a bit of that going on. But we're all right. Everything's cool. So we decided to self-isolate for a week just to see, just to be double sure.
Right. Well, yeah, it's funny for me. It's been the complete opposite. I've been, over the last few days, more out in public than I've ever been, which is strange and completely uncharacteristic. But as I've said on the stream a couple of times, I do live sound for a couple of bars locally, and also got roped into working on the bar. And it was St. Patrick's Day on Tuesday, so we went with the measure no cash at all, card only. And ended up taking twice what we normally take in a night. So I was running around like a nutcase.
As you do, yeah.
As you do.
All good, though.
Yeah. And then yesterday I turned up to the same venue because I was going to be hosting the open mic night there. And I brought along a bottle of microphone sanitizer, and which actually I genuinely already had. Seriously, microphone sanitizer. Smells like almonds. It's quite nice. And a mic from Sontronics called the Corona, rather unfortunately. And I turned up, and the news was that the entire venue's now shut from now forward. Uh-oh.
There's a lot of them happening, though, isn't there?
Yes. So
there's a lot of that kind of stuff going down at the moment. Everywhere's shutting up shop.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. But hey, I'm really, really behind on my videos, so time to do some live videos and some editing. So, music nerds unite. And tonight we will all come together and have a celebration of our nerdery. And let's celebrate that by starting the intro. This is the Hot Pole Position. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, but hey, I'm really, really behind on my videos, so there we go. That was weird. I kind of heard myself full volume then.
Do you know what, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to call that. I think that was potentially my fault.
Okay.
I think I definitely opened the YouTube stream in the background by accident.
Oh, I've done way worse than that on stream. Technical issues? What technical issues? Just to remind everybody who's watching this on catch-up, this is a live broadcast, and things happen on live broadcasts. I've had it where we've done a live video in the first 10 minutes, nobody could hear us. I've had it where the levels were so quiet, everybody had to turn it up 20 dB. I've had it so loud, it was clipping.
Well, what I can tell you is, for sure, the lag on my camera is destroying my soul. Now, I think I know what's happened here. All of a sudden, it's become clear to me. So, a few weeks back, I had some builders in doing some work in my house. And they decided it was in their best interests to flick the breaker switch off without actually telling anybody.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that they fried my webcam, because sometimes when I have it installed and plugged in and what have you, the Mac won't boot. I have to unplug it first before it'll boot, and this is the first time I've used it since then. And what do you know? Horrendous lag problems.
And there's some Yeah, some
Sorry, go on.
strobing going on as well, because it's not got anti-flicker set up or something.
Yeah, which it should have by default. So I think there's something evidently going a bit awry with this.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's misbehaving, shall we say.
Yes.
So, I have come up with another solution.
Well, you're in Bury, which isn't that far from me. I'm sure if you shout loud enough, we'll just pick you up.
Yeah, I mean, I thought perhaps it was maybe the internet connection, but it's not, because I've got like a gigabit connection here. It's not that.
You're not on a VPN or anything?
Nope.
In that case...
It's just this bizarro webcam. So, what I'm going to do is flick over to the MacBook.
Ah. Well, that's all right. And I'm hearing some interesting digital crickets in the background, probably from that USB Chinese microphone that you're using.
Someone sent me this for a free review, and truth be told, it's not great.
Yeah, I mean, I've done one before. When I first did this streaming setup, there was a Chinese company sent me a mic, which I did a video on, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. It was okay in that kind of, like...
Like, if I had to pay, like, £5 or less for this microphone, I'd be absolutely thrilled. Anything more than that, and I'd feel robbed. But, beggars can't be choosers. It was free.
Yes, that's kind of it, isn't it? The when you build in a YouTube channel and people are like, "Hey, do you want to be given free stuff?" You're like, "Yeah, okay."
Yes, that'd be lovely. Thank
you.
Send it along.
Yeah, and you end up building up a collection that gets slightly ridiculous.
Yeah, and then before you know it,
it's like I'm doing this through a lovely mic from Rode, which they sent me. And through the Audience Sono, through the valve, actually, which makes it sound really nice and rich. If you set... I was going to
say, the quality of your voice on this for a podcast is absolutely stunning.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, so I was part of the beta program for the Sono because I've been working with Audient for a long time. And so at the end of it, Audient were gracious enough to say, well, it's a beta unit. We can't sell it, keep hold of it. So now I use it for everything. And yeah, it turns out that, the valve's supposed to be for the guitar section, but there's a button on the back, you can route the microphone through it. And if you actually turn your mic gain down quite a bit and let the valve do the rest, it really sounds quite nice.
All right. Nice. It does.
To be quite honest as well, a lot of it is the mic. I've done a video on the pod mic, which I need to finish the edit on, which I was saying just before we went live, I've got like 12 videos that I need to finish the edits on, which this gives me a great opportunity. And I compared it to a 57, and the 57 sounded like I was talking through several socks. And that was without doing anything. I just literally unplugged one, plugged this in, and it sounded like this. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the difference.
To be honest, I am sat in essentially my studio mixing room, if you will. So I'm listening to your voice come through a expensive pair of monitors, and it is very, very clear, full, nice low end.
Voice of God. It's one of the strange things. OBS doesn't have an EQ built in, although you can use VSTs. That's...
light out the way.
Yeah, looks like maybe the camera needs a wipe, but otherwise...
Right, he's all going wrong for me today, honestly.
It's fine.
Let's get this bad boy on the go.
But yeah, because OBS doesn't have an EQ, the valve section on this Sono actually has a 3-band EQ, so just turn the bass up a little. And happy days.
Happy days indeed. Right, can you hear me all right again?
I can hear you absolutely fine, yes.
So, here we go. Thanks a lot.
Yeah! So the review video is going to be, it's a mic. Thanks for watching.
I put the review video out like absolutely ages ago.
Right.
It's just absolutely wretched, that microphone.
Yeah. So
on the basis that this room appears to have absolutely terrible lighting condition, I'm actually going to relocate. So carry on talking, please.
Right. That's some real dedication to the craft right there.
it is what it is because, you know, at the end of the day, we must achieve excellence at all times and we will accept nothing less.
Well, that's one way of looking at it.
Get rid of that.
Oh, that's a point. I've got Facebook open as one of the tabs. No thanks.
Little tour.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool little studio setup you got there.
Yeah, so, well, I don't know how much of this you can really see, but that's you were coming through.
Yeah, very nice. I dare say you've got better near fields than I have.
What are you rocking at the moment?
Well, I'm actually using a 2.2 setup. I'm using Adam A7Xs with 2 Adam sub-8s.
Oh, okay.
Wow. It took me a little while to get used to, because depending on where you sit in the control room, 30 hertz is either a complete null or it's absolutely killing you.
Yeah, I invested in SonarWorks a while back to correct my horrendous low mid bump.
Yeah, me too. It's I swear by SonarWorks. I've actually got the activation key on my desk for some reason. Oh yeah, that's because my laptop's a new laptop because my other one died just before NAM. Long story. 2 days before NAM. Main editing machine death. Great. That was fun.
That's better already.
That is fantastic. We can see your lovely face. Hey.
Right, there we go. We're back in the game. So
where were we? We
yeah.
soft launched into talking about the current situation without using that keyword that gets everybody demonetized.
Is that what's going on with this?
So I've heard. I can't confirm that, but one of the channels that I tend to watch, Gamers Nexus, they call it human malware. Which is kind of amusing, but also gets round using the keywords that have apparently flagged a lot of stuff as being lumped in with crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theories and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Who are like,
aliens did it.
Yeah.
All that kind of, yeah.
Psychotic individuals out there, but aside from that, you get a lot of people who are showing things that perhaps the media don't want to be shown.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this situation is controlled very heavily.
For
a multitude of reasons. I mean, obviously, governments aren't going to want mass hysteria, and they want to try and, you know, they're obviously working towards some sort of plan or a goal, and they're trying to minimize the impact on their country. And if everybody starts posting all over the internet and hashtags start going up about, you know, forbidden word, before you know it, there's a frenzy.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, there's a frenzy anyway, but I'm just trying not to get caught up too much in it.
I did the Asda battle this morning, to be honest.
Oh god, my other half's literally just gone out now with a riot shield and a bat and a helmet, and to go to Tesco and face the inevitable.
I thought, to be honest, that I was going to have to take a firearm with me this morning.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely crazy. Like, I don't understand why people are behaving like this.
Oh, people are people. But that's where doing what we do as sound engineers, we're fairly, you know, secluded isolationists anyway.
Well, I mean,
I certainly am.
Change for me, to be honest.
Right. It's funny. My life is almost split down the middle schizophrenically. That I'm a completely isolated sound engineer who works from his studio to do YouTube videos and remote mixing most of the time, in complete silence. And then on the other side of it, I'm a trained chef and like bar manager and deal with people all the time. So it's weird for me, but now, like, because I've got the chef training, I've got a freezer literally full of takeaway tubs full of cooked meals. Not because of what's happened, but because that's what I do anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, when in Rome.
Yeah.
And skills. So unfortunately for me, I work in IT, so if your router goes down or something. I mean, I should be saying that, to be fair, given the horrendous streaming problems I'm currently having.
Yeah. There's nothing quite like things going wrong at go time, is there?
Always. You know, tested this earlier and I was like, cool, the mic's fine, the camera seems to be working all right. You know, you get it online and all of a sudden.
Yep. And then 20 minutes later, someone in your chat says, this isn't working. And you're like, why didn't you tell me earlier? They're like, I thought you knew.
And of course, I'm currently also called Liam, so...
Oh, yes. Well, that's because my overlay is actually at one, like, PNG. I can turn that entire layer on and off, you see. But I didn't have the time before the stream to go into Photoshop and completely re-render that.
That's alright. I'll take Liam. Cool.
Cool. Liam's pretty cool. You're doing okay. Unfortunately, my regular co-host Liam is not with us this week because he's not been well aside from what's been going on. So yeah, he should be back next week. He's doing okay. But yeah, he's been missing for a couple of weeks and we miss him very much. But he will bounce back.
Grim times all around.
Indeed. On a completely different note, what we usually do on the stream is we tend to drink a little bit. Tonight's stream is brought to you by Admiral's Old J Dark Rum. If you are of legal drinking age, feel free to drink along with me on the stream. Something I like to do. Drink responsibly. This is just about the first drink I've had all week. But this is actually kind of my chill out time because when I'm doing like video editing or audio editing, I like to be razor sharp and really, focused. But on the podcast, it's just chill and chat. Yeah. So this is my one night where I'm like, yeah, rum and coke.
Let's say that I am partial to a creativity booster every now and again. But not in the house.
Ah.
But, I don't know. I'm one of them people, one of them weirdos that's not exactly straight edge, but I don't really drink that often.
Well, yeah, me too, actually. But that's, he says. But yeah, I'm one of those people where it is like once a week or, yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably put like once or twice a year, maybe.
Right, okay. Ah. Well, fair enough.
To be honest, it's I'll tell you where that came from.
Yeah.
That came from years and years and years of being in bands, and I was the first one out of my group of friends that got a driver's license. So I was
right.
So I just drinking at shows and stuff like that, and it just kind of stuck. Like, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I'm not too different. In the last 3 years, I've put 100,000 miles on my car. Yeah. Because working in different venues, and up until recently, I was playing in a wedding band, and that could be anywhere from Glasgow to near London, 3 times a week. Yeah, it is crazy. The pay was good, and the tax relief was incredible. Because if you're doing a 300-mile round trip and you can claim tax back on that, yeah, it adds up.
Tax gains.
Yeah, sometimes I'd end up getting more back in tax relief than I actually got paid for the show.
Well, I've always said that, or shall we say, my personal mantra is, if the government cannot be trusted to spend my tax money correctly, they shall not receive it.
Yes.
I don't pay tax to buy them guys Bentleys and Range Rovers, frankly.
No, quite. Yes.
So, I wouldn't like to say on air tax evasion, but you know what I mean. Yeah,
done properly. Making sure that you get what you're owed. Yes.
And then some.
Talking about which, because money's going to be tight for a lot of people at the moment, let's talk about the news. Let's move on to the screen that shows the news. So, the first article I found this week on Music Text website, this is one that I've taken full advantage of. Moog, some people call them Moog, but apparently that's how it's pronounced. They have an iOS app and Android, I think, called the Mini Moog Model D, which models, well, funnily enough, one of their most famous synthesizers, and they have released it for free. Up until recently, it's been £15 or $15, and I've got to tell you, it's a pretty decent app. I've got it right there on my phone. I actually got it for my iPad, but if you get it for an iPad, you also get it for iPhone as well. And it sounds pretty much like a Mini Moog.
Yeah, 100%. Just about to go and get that.
Yes. So yeah, check that out. So yeah, that also, it can run as an audio unit version 3 plugin. So if you're using something like Cubasis on your iPad, you can drop it in as a plugin. So it's not just a standalone, you can actually use it usefully in recording DAWs on your iPad. Which I need to revisit soon, because I made an iPad series a good few years ago now with Cubasis 2 and Aurea Pro. And Cubasis 3's out now, and apparently that's a lot more powerful.
And I guess if you really wanted to, you could take a line out from your iPhone or iPad and just run it straight into your interface.
Yeah, you can do that.
Element in there.
Or if you're feeling absolutely crazy, and this is something I've done quite a few times, if your interface has external power and is class compliant, use a Apple camera connector, is what they call it, and just use it as the interface on your iPad. Yeah. There's a video out that I released a few weeks ago. Do you know a guy called Danny Quinn?
Yes.
Yes. He's got big black bushy beard. He lives in Bury. And yeah, so a few weeks ago, we released a video of him in my studio doing a cover of Street Spirit by Radiohead.
Mm-hmm.
And we used an iPad and the new Audion Evo 4 and used some clever connectors and a power bank to get them working and use the Evo as the interface.
Nice.
Yeah, used a Slate ML1 and ML2 on the guitars, and then sent myself the files over Dropbox and then mixed it later, and it sounded amazing.
See, are you a PC or a Mac guy?
I'm generally a PC guy. Generally.
That game, man. AirDrop, life-changing.
Nah, Dropbox is fine for me. Plus, I'm a Dropbox convert. I've got a 2 terabyte Dropbox that I swear by.
Do you know what? Right, I've been a user for a really long time, but as of late, I have been, and I'm almost ashamed to say it, using Google Drive a lot.
Now I used to use Google Drive quite a lot, but I had issues because what I do is I actually record all my projects straight into my Dropbox. I literally save the project and everything in there. And the problem with Google Drive is when I hit save on the desktop app, it had issues with trying to overwrite the old project,
right,
and would cause loads of sync issues. And that was a massive pain, not just with Pro Tools and Reaper, but also with Photoshop or Premiere or anything. You try and overwrite a file and it craps the bed.
Right, because it's load the file at the same time, right, into it, I guess.
Yeah, whereas Dropbox's versioning stuff in the behind the scenes was always really good.
Yeah, I think Dropbox starts uploading the file after it's finished being written to, whereas Google Drive does it instantaneously in real time.
Yeah, which whatever it is about the back end of how it works, Dropbox has always been seamless for me, and Google Drive just panicked too often.
The thing that makes me want to kill myself regularly whilst using Dropbox is the fact that when you send a mix to a client, Dropbox, as of about 3 months ago, tends to compress the holy hell out of the audio.
Yeah.
Screaming it. It's awful. It sounds like it's 8-bit mono coming out the phone. It's awful.
Yes, it is on mobile that it does that, yeah.
Yeah, you got to think most clients they're at work or whatever, they're going to pop the headphones in. It's like, oh man, but Google Drive doesn't do that. So the only problem with Google Drive is the sharing settings are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But once you've kind of figured out how they work, it's about the same user experience, give or take. I do prefer the way Dropbox works. It's just a whole lot simpler. But about a week ago, maybe 2, I signed up for FilePass.
Right.
So I've been using FilePass, to be honest, since then.
You're the second guest I've had on in as many months that loves FilePass.
FilePass.
Yeah, I'll definitely be checking FilePass out, but yeah, for now, Dropbox does most of what I want, apart from I use WeTransfer to send exports. Yeah. Apart from that.
The FilePass is, well, there's actually, in the future, FilePass are looking to integrate video as well. so you'll be able to send much larger files as well as video projects for people, which is handy. But for now, the biggest thing that drew me to FilePass was one simple word, sir: the paywall. So you upload the mix, and the band can leave time-stamped comments on it. So rather than getting an email through that makes absolutely no sense with the revisions, now you can actually stamp this drum fill needs changing, or this guitar solo is too quiet, and whatever. They can timestamp everything that they want. Once you've done that and the final mix is then uploaded, the band can't download it until they've paid the bill.
Yes, I'm liking the sound of that.
So it takes all them awkward conversations out of, hey guys, so I really don't want to send you the mix before it's been paid for. It just gets rid of all of that. If they want the stuff, pay for it.
Yeah.
It's glorious. Absolutely glorious. It just does it for you. It's basically like having a strong man that goes around and beats people up to pay money, just digitally.
Love it.
Stick the mix in there, send the band the link, and when they pay you, they get it.
Yeah, I'm definitely checking that out.
The thing as well that I think is really cool about it is it integrates Stripe. So if the band want to pay via a credit card or whatever, it then opens the door up to multiple different payment methods, which is handy, I guess, for some, especially in a climate like this where people might not have readily available cash in the debit card, but they may have a 0% credit card that they're willing to use. Each man makes his own choice, of course, but the option is there.
Yeah. They're not sponsoring you, are they?
Not actually, as it goes.
Cool.
They would.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
they're not.
I might be having a word with them in the future. Keep your eyes peeled. Yeah. Just before we move on from the Moog thing, also, Korg's Chaosilator app is free. Which is iPad and iPhone, but that's more of like a beat thing, so I made this earlier.
Oh, funnily enough, when you search for Moog,
yeah,
it's the one listed right below it in the App Store.
Yes, so the Chaosilator app is also free and is usually expensive. So get that, ladies and gentlemen. Get it. Yeah.
Downloading as we speak.
Yes. Oh, it's all part and parcel of mobile devices, right?
Yeah, they just slide straight out the hand.
Yep. Boop, clang. That's why I always have a tough case on my phones, because I have a child and I'm also a child.
I feel you there. I have a 3-year-old that regularly makes destruction.
Yes. Yeah, my little girl's almost 2. She can't quite willingly cause destruction yet, but she's strong. So
give it a damn good go.
Oh yeah, no, I mean she can destroy stuff, but it's never with malice yet. No. She's just giddy, and she's for her age, she's about the size of a monster truck. She comes up to the top of my hip. She's huge. She's not even 2. It's like there's a graph of how tall a child should be, and she's right at the top. And you're looking at it going, what are we feeding you? Stop growing.
I'm telling you, man, there's a whole discussion to be had about that. There's a whole discussion about, I think that there's a lot to be said for the growth rate in children these days, because, things like KFC, McDonald's, all that type of thing, don't get me wrong, everybody loves a nice treat every now and again. But I think they hot that stuff up with so many growth hormones and all the kind of awful stuff that they're putting in it. That must be having an effect on kids. It must be.
Probably. But I mean, for my daughter especially, that's an odd, that can't be it, because we've never given her any of that, and my partner's a vegetarian. I cook everything in the house, completely like bare ingredients, and we don't have milk in the house. We don't have any of that kind of stuff really, and yet she's huge.
What time do you generally eat dinner, and do you have space for one more?
6 o'clock, be here sharp. I do cook for about 20. That's the thing. So. I'm terrible at cooking for 2 or cooking for 3. I always cook way more than I need and then portion and freeze it. Always,
Yeah,
always done it.
I'm a sucker for cooking way more than I need, and instead of portioning and freezing it, I'm just very fat. That's just how it's gone. It'll be like, I'll save a bit for later, and then I'll end up watching a series or something on Netflix, winding down, and I'll be like, they're meatballs, so
Yeah.
on and on goes the dangerous cycle.
It's funny because it's true. Yeah, I was like that for a long time, and I still have the worst sweet tooth, but because of the jobs that I do, it keeps me incredibly active, and that's the only way I'm in shape right now. Otherwise, I'd be out of shape.
Yeah.
But I think times change. We'll see. I might put on about 4 stone by the end of the next 2 weeks. Sitting in this chair, expanding.
It's scary, man, honestly, because I'm hearing on the grapevine that this is potentially going for months. Like, someone I know works as like a college administrator or whatever, and they're saying that this could potentially be up to 3 or 4 months that they're being told to expect schools to be closed.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's nuts. So, if, obviously people who have kids and stuff like that are going to have to be at work or working from home. And if that goes on for 3 or 4 months, I mean, that's a bad situation.
Yeah, that's not good.
So I guess we take it as it comes.
Yeah.
Absolutely hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, in my situation, my little girl was in nursery 2 days a week, and I looked after her the rest of the time. But even so, I mean, it just ended up being like full-time dad plus YouTuber plus mixing engineer plus whatever else.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm with you there with that one. So,
yep.
I mean, at the moment, when we were first told from my day job to, everybody's working from home, the whole company's going to go home, blah blah blah. I thought, great, perfect. I'll have time to get plenty of mixing work done, catch up, get ahead of the curve. In fact, treat myself.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute nightmare. I've been so busy this week that I've just about managed to get a couple of tracks done and some revisions for some clients, and it's like, oh god, when does it end?
Oh god, it'll never end. That's the secret, Cap. It never ends. Yeah, well, it's funny, like, this is why I'm so behind on editing videos for the channel. I've not put out a non-live video in 8 days, which is unusual for me. But that's just because it's been so hectic last couple of months that I've just got further and further behind. But everything's filmed, it's just a case of sitting down for a solid couple of hours in silence.
Yeah, and just putting it together.
Yeah, shut up everybody, I've got to concentrate, because I can do the basics like synchronize everything, colour grade, make the sound nice, but if I don't actually sit down and go, well, what's this guy talking about, this guy being me that I filmed, then the edit's not going to be coherent.
Yeah.
And because my channel's quite technical, I do lots of audio examples of stuff, I have to sit down and make sure it's the right audio clip at the right time with the right text, and if I screw that up, the internet never lets me forget. That's something I'm very aware of. One of the early series that I did a series of stuff for Celestians, comparing all their speakers, and at the time I thought, I'll talk about this, then I'll show you the speaker, then I'll talk about the next one, then I'll show you the speaker, and all the comments are, you should have put them back to back so we could hear the difference. And I'm like, well, can't you just skip between them? I've given you timestamps.
Sue me.
Exactly, but it's like, yeah, well, if I go back and make this series again, which I won't because it's so much bloody effort, then maybe I'll do it that way.
It's absolutely crazy. It's like, I know exactly where you're coming from. I mean, obviously, my YouTube efforts have been, my channel's a lot smaller than yours, but it's like I didn't post a video for a while now, other than the Berlin trip that I was just on.
Yeah.
I last one was like November, and it's just so much gets on top of you that quickly. And like you say, to actually sit down and edit a video, make it coherent, make it entertaining, and get the information in there that need to be in there in a way that's accessible for people.
That's it.
Is difficult and time consuming, and I've just frankly not had time. And it got to the point where it was like, well, shall I put together a quick idea of something that I've got? And I think, well, I've kind of already covered that in a previous video. I don't want to just start rehashing old ground just for the sake of putting a video out. So I just decided to take a break and then come back to it when I had something more meaningful to show people. So that ended up being the head trick.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's probably why I've not finished any of these videos. They're good content, but I'm not like, the 15th microphone review in a row.
For me, it's mostly drum mixing. Like, I seem to be known for drum mixing, and I get a lot of comments about drum mixes and dude, he's so punchy and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, all right. And then I'll break down some of the mixes I've been working on and how I arrived there, and maybe that's going to help somebody. But they take a long time to put together because you've got to be really conscious about the fact that you don't start rambling. I can ramble for England, and it's like, for every video that's maybe 35 minutes long, I probably shot 2 hours worth of me rambling about intricate little details.
Well, it's funny you say that, actually, because when I edit my stuff, I generally don't edit all that out, because I decided quite early on that my channel is going to be excruciating detail, where everybody else's channel is straight to the point and clinical. And I thought, you know what, if someone complains it's too long, next, go and watch somebody else's videos, because that's what I do. That's how my head works.
Yeah, to be honest, I found I think I found a happy medium in between being able to explain things technically, but keep the time to sub an hour. So, whatever, it works, but I'm still in the kind of building phase, and there's so many things going on that YouTube definitely isn't like a top priority for me. It's just something that I do on the side,
right,
now and again.
It's funny, it's become more of a priority for me, but when I started, it definitely wasn't. Because at the time when I started the YouTube channel, I was doing 6 days a week for a successful media company, being a cameraman, video editor, sound ADR. We opened the studio years before the YouTube channel to do film voiceover, ADR, Foley, basically make stuff for the media we were working on.
Yeah.
And it just so turned out that whenever we had bands in, because that was my weekend thing, was record bands because I can, and because it's what I love doing, I would ramble at these bands about whatever mixing technique came to mind. And eventually one of them said, well, why don't you film this? I was like, yeah, okay.
It's like, well, as you mentioned it.
Yeah. It's like, actually, I've got all these cameras because I work for a media company. I've got all these microphones because that's what I do. Why am I not doing this? And that's kind of how that grew. And it's only in the last couple of years where it's really started to slope up that curve that I've really started to knuckle down on it. And now I'm aiming for it to be a full-time thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're certainly in your way. What, you're at like 26,500 subs?
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
That's good, man. It's certainly growing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think last time I checked, which was about 20 minutes ago, I was at 403.
You were at what now, sorry?
403.
Awesome. I remember... See, I kind of cheated. When I started, I already had 300 and something just because I put a video up years ago. But so let's say from that to 700, so 400-ish, took me a year and a half. And then from that first 1,000, which probably took me 2.5 years, It took me another year for the next 1,000, then another 6 months for the next 1,000, then another 3 months.
Yeah,
and now I get that's
YouTube,
it.
You get suggested
And yeah, it's everything together, because as I went, I learned how to be a better presenter. I started to make videos about what I thought people would want to see, as well as the videos I wanted to make just for me. That's something that I've always tried to do. Is I do a blend of maybe every third video is one that I think people will just it's a burning question that people are asking. And then the two in between are questions I want to answer, that my nerd sense is tingling, and I'm like, what happens if? And then some of them are successful, some of them aren't, and that's okay. But that's just a numbers game.
Yeah, I think that is, like you say, it can be a numbers game. I mean, when I first started on YouTube, I was doing all types of different stuff. Like, I was inspired, I think, to make YouTube content by Mr. Peter McKinnon, because I was watching his channel and I was just in love with the way he made his vlogs and videos and tutorials, and the really cinematic style of it all. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, my girlfriend is a photographer, so she already had like a bunch of camera gear, and I was like, yeah, I could totally do a YouTube channel. So I decided that's what I was going to do, and started making YouTube videos. But I had like some bits of vlogs and some bits of other stuff, and it took me a few months to realise that no one cares. Like, literally nobody cares what I do outside of audio. And I just got questions about audio stuff, and I was like, do you know what? I'm just answer the public and give them what they want and make audio tutorials.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I recently opened up like an extra YouTube channel so that if there's anything I want to throw out there that's not related, I can just dump it there. Because I've learned as well that the stuff that people don't want to watch can negatively affect the algorithm. Yeah.
Massively so.
But
it's, I guess you get known for something, and someone comes to the channel and they're like, what is this? And before you know it, like, they're either unsubscribing or they're disliking all your videos, and it's
yeah.
And as soon as that starts happening.
Yeah, I've got one guy, and I swear it's one guy. I can't prove it, but I swear it's one guy that gets to every video that I make and dislikes it. I'm like, why? Why would you do this to me? Why? Why bother?
Yeah, we've all got that one guy. I have a similar person, and I think I have a feeling of who it is. But almost every video gets a dislike, and it's always really, really quickly. So this person was subscribed, and they've obviously got the notification bell on. As soon as my video drops, they dislike it instantly.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the stats, it's like they've not even watched the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like they've watched a few seconds. They watched just enough for the dislike button to show on the bottom, so they can just dislike it and then move.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Leave them to it, man. Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, it's just an odd kind of why you do this.
It used to really bother me. I used to take it deeply personally.
Like,
why did this person dislike my video? Is there something I could have done better? Did I not explain clearly enough? And now I'm just like, please.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I get loads of negative comments now because I've got loads of videos. And it's always people with opinions that either make no sense or they're stuck in their ways, which is fine, but there's no need to be so angry about it. But then my general rule now is if someone puts 3 really nasty comments on 3 different videos, I ban them from the channel. Because if you disagree with me, that's fine. If you completely disagree with what I say, I have no issue with that. But if you go onto 3 separate videos in a row and just start writing nasty, hateful stuff, you're just on a campaign to just be awful. I don't need that kind of negativity.
Yeah, because I mean, if the thing is, if they dislike your videos that much, then maybe try going on to a different channel. Like,
Yeah,
no need to be a dick. Stop yourself.
that's it. I mean, if somebody, like I say, if somebody disagrees with me, fine. If somebody disagrees with me on a legitimate reason, great. I actively encourage discourse. If you prefer, like, my thing is Reaper, right? It's what it's become. That's my platform, and for better or for worse, that's what I'm known for. But if people are like, oh, it's crap, it's like, well, okay, why? And if they can come up with a good reason why they prefer something else, cool. But I did one with a clickbaity-ish title a while back called "I Hate Pro Tools" or something like that.
Oh, I saw that.
Why I hate Pro Tools. And yeah, within the first minute, I very clearly say, okay, I don't actually hate Pro Tools, but here are the reasons why I'd use an alternative. And you get people in block capitals screaming at you like, this is the industry standard, if you don't do this, you'll never have a job. And I'm like, I run a fairly busy studio and my YouTube channel's growing, where's yours? And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, turn caps lock off, keyboard warrior.
The thing is, when I think about the whole DAW market, I get why it is a handy thing, let's say, to know if you're going to be the type of producer, engineer, mixer, whatever, who's going to go from studio to studio, probably 90% of them are going to be using Pro Tools. So if you're comfortable, at least comfortable with it, then great. But in terms of if you're going to run your own place, who gives a shit?
That's it. Plus, I'd like to think I'm competent enough in Pro Tools that I can walk into a studio, track a band with some fairly clean edits, and then just export the WAV files and do what I want with it later.
Do you know, I've tried a lot of DAWs over the years. I was a big Cubase user for a while, and I have tried Reaper. But the one DAW I just cannot get my head around is Logic. It just doesn't make sense.
It's funny. I tried using Logic when it was Logic 9 and it was labyrinthine. It was awful. Logic 10's not so bad, but not being a Mac guy, obviously it's not really accessible to me. But if anyone else uses it, fine, cool, you know. Like Adam Nolly Getgood, who's one of my mixing heroes, swears by Logic. If it works for him, it must be decent.
And Will Putney, who is one of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Will Putney makes some fantastic tracks. And if it's good enough for them, great, you know. But it just so happens that I use Reaper not just because I think it's the best, but for me, it's incredibly fast. It gets out of my way, so I can do what I want, which I can do in Logic, I can do in Pro Tools, I can do in Cubase. It just puts the chains around my feet a little bit, so I've got to drag myself along a little. You know, which I can do if I have to, and that's okay. But
yeah, I've had a lot of people say to me over the past, when you get into the whole DAW discussion, why do you use Pro Tools? Like it doesn't have this and it doesn't have that and blah blah blah. And I'm like, for me, the reason why I use Pro Tools exclusively now, and I took a 2-3 year break onto Cubase and tried that. Yeah, Cubase is great. You know, the MIDI functionality is amazing, and I would say it's a passive Pro Tools in many ways. It's very good. But Pro Tools, I grew up on it. It's the first DAW I ever used. I know it like the back of my hand. I don't have to think about it. I know all the key commands and all the shortcuts. Like I can work so fast in Pro Tools.
right.
That to me, I don't have to learn anything. Even when they have new features, you kind of get used to the way Avid do things. So when a new feature comes out, I just kind of instinctively know where to go to get it. So for me, it's just a comfort thing. And, you know, yes, Avid are behind the curve. Yes, Pro Tools is behind the curve. We've been waiting 10 years for folder tracks, and we're probably going to get them at some point. The way I see Pro Tools is it's like the sick dog that you just don't want to put down. Just keep it going with medication, and you know, rather than ditch it for a lighter DAW, I'll just buy a more powerful PC so it'll be stable. It's just that's how I've been going on with it for years. I've just nursed it along and kept it going. And
So
it's not like
it's you. Whenever you tweak and mix, the lights go dim in my house.
yeah.
Powerful enough PC.
To be fair, the more recent versions of Pro Tools have been significantly better resource wise. For the longest time, I was running a whole studio setup off a MacBook Pro
Mm,
with it was flawless, no problem at all.
right.
And the version that's just come out a few, I want to say weeks ago, which probably a couple of months ago, that one has been awesome. Like
Good.
super lean. So I think they're getting there, and I think now the audio industry has become more accessible to people. You've got more people making records. You know, the Billie Eilishes of the world who are in the bedrooms with Logic.
Yeah.
And like, it's become so much more accessible that I think Avid don't really have much of a choice. They've got to keep up with the trends, otherwise they're not going to be the industry standard for much longer.
Yeah. Well, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? That yeah, the generation that swore by Pro Tools since the mid-90s, they're all retiring.
Well, that's it. And I think, to be honest, the only reason and the sole reason why Pro Tools keeps on the handle of industry standard is nothing to do with the DAW itself. It's all to do with the video side of things.
You
Avid
reckon?
Media Composer. Yeah. Because Avid Media Composer is an industry standard in like the film industry, TV industry. They all use Avid. And because it's so, when Avid bought out DigiDesign and then Avid became owners of Pro Tools, it's been industry standard for a reason, for two separate reasons. The first reason being that back in the day when people were still working all analog, Pro Tools was kind of the first to market that would emulate the flow of an analog console.
Yeah.
So the guys that had grown up on analog desks knew how to operate it in terms of gain staging, routing, aux buses. It all worked exactly the same as a console. So it was very comfortable for them, and so that everybody went to it and flocked to it because they could work it and operate. And then when Avid bought them out, because of the interoperability between Media Composer and Pro Tools, it remained the industry standard. Because if you're working in a production house that's doing, you know, movie soundtracks and you're having to sync to video on a massive studio, why would you bother using a DAW that doesn't have like one-to-one replication? So they can open up Media Composer, have their trailer, and be mixing in Pro Tools, and it's completely seamless. That's why it's the industry standard for that reason only. It's because of the video.
That makes sense, and I can see in the long term, in post-production houses especially, it will continue to be what it is.
They're always going to dominate that industry until someone, you know, for instance, like Steinberg or one of the other big cats in audio comes up with a video suite that's as good as Media Composer. They're not going to get in that industry.
No.
In terms of audio,
DaVinci Resolve is really coming up. I've been using Resolve for a while, although I'm a Premiere guy.
Yeah, same.
DaVinci Resolve, in terms of its color grading, was always amazing. The editing was really awkward, but that's getting better and better and better. So it's becoming closer and closer to a usable full-time thing. But for me, I use Premiere all the time because I also use Photoshop, I also use After Effects, I also use Illustrator, and I can literally drag and drop stuff with no rendering.
But do you not find Premiere is the Pro Tools of video? It's like everybody uses it, but it's a sick puppy you don't want to put down. It's buggy as shit. It crashes all the time. It's slower than other video editors. Final Cut's significantly quicker.
Well, again, that's changed recently. Like Premiere for me is now so fast, and actually version by version. Until I got this new laptop 3 months ago, I had the same laptop for 5 years, and Premiere got faster every year on the same machine.
You see, we as Mac users are suffering because long story short, Apple had a very public falling out with Intel. Sorry, not Intel.
NVIDIA.
Yeah, and Adobe just basically sucks on AMD cards. It sucks. It's awful. So I've got one of them cylinder trash can Mac Pros.
Right.
So it's got 2 GPUs in it, right? And you think it'd be a rendering beast, but it's actually shocking.
Yeah, in real time it can't use both. Yeah.
Forget about it. It's like 6 hours.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. And that's I don't know what causes it. I guess it's whatever Adobe the word that I'm looking for is gone out of my mind. They will make their software work particularly well on certain chipsets, etc.
Optimization. Yes.
Yeah, I guess it depends what Adobe are optimizing for, because if they're optimizing for NVIDIA cards, then Macs are screwed.
Well, my previous laptop was AMD. The graphics card was a 270, which is now like long in the tooth. But when I got the laptop, which was nearly a £2,000 laptop, it was shit up. But it could export a heavily graded video in 1080. Let's say it was a 10-minute video, it could do it in 20 minutes. By the time the laptop died, it could do the same video in 5 minutes. I mean, like night and day.
It's definitely got better.
The code's obviously been cleaned up.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I experience similar kind of results when I'm working with 1080, but for me, the killer is 4K. I actually don't shoot in 4K anymore because the rendering time is so hideous.
Ah.
It's just not worth it. It's if I shot, say, a 10-minute video in 1080,
yeah,
I'd be with my current setup, a 10-minute video, fully color graded, edited sound layers, everything all in, right, would probably take 15-20 minutes to render ish.
Right.
If that's in 4K, 3 hours.
Wow.
It's shocking, absolutely shocking. And if you had have you heard of a tool called Neat Video?
Yes, I know Neat Video for noise removal.
Yeah. So.
Oh well, that's going to screw you either way.
Forget about it, man. That goes up to like 8 hours if you put Neat Video on it.
Yeah. Oh well, what I used to do until I got my previous laptop, because I've been working with Premiere for nearly 15 years now. The first editing suite we had Premiere CS3. We actually had a PCI card that was the full length. I'm talking like 15 inches long. That was a Matrox card that was, without it, the machine wouldn't play 1080p video at all. No color grading, it literally wouldn't play it.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so from there, I mean, we edited a full feature film on that machine. It was ridiculous. But we went from that, and I've been using Premiere that long now, that I got into the habit with Media Encoder of queuing things up for the end of the day and then rendering it overnight anyway. So that's just my workflow now. Always has been. So even if a render time is 8 hours, 10 hours, then I get 3 or 4 videos edited, stick them in the queue and go to bed. So, yeah. Although now, I'll set them rendering, I'll go make a brew, I'll come back and I'll be like, oh, you're done? Oh, right.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, right? But every now and again, I'll just have this one unicorn video that'll just render in like 4 minutes, and I'll be like, "You must have had an error. This can't be correct." And I watch it and sit there intently, and I'm like, "No, it's actually done it."
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
It's crazy. But I mean, speaking of which, though, of rendering and all things like it, have you had much of a chance to look at the new Mac Pro?
Not really. I've seen some very good things about it.
Oh my lord. The one good thing is not the price tag.
Yes.
I mean, like a fully loaded version of it's going to set you back like 40, 50 grand.
Yeah, but a fully loaded version of it, you're an absolute idiot for paying it. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but in saying that, though, I don't think there's another machine on the market that has like 56 cores and 1.5 terabytes of RAM. God knows why you'd need it.
Literally any PC with an AMD Threadripper. You can get a 64-core Threadripper with 256 gig of RAM for what, 6,000?
I personally wouldn't pay that sort of money for it, but I guess if I was like,
No, but we don't need it. That's the thing. As audio guys, anything above maybe 8 cores is right. It's overkill right now.
For sure. And if you're like Disney Pixar, you get a room full of these, then I guess that represents a cost saving on what you were using before. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
to be fair, people like Pixar are a great example. They'll have a room full of Threadrippers in Linux boxes and not use Windows at all. And then, because that's another thing about DaVinci Resolve, if you do your videos, there's a Linux version. So it's rock solid.
Of course. Yeah.
And it pretty much gets down to the bare metal, so it's about as high performing as it's ever going to be. But that's the other thing for me. People say, well, Mac or PC, and I'm like, I don't care. Whatever runs the program.
That debate's been raging since time immemorial, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, the turning point for me was when Apple switched to Intel processors, because at that point, every program that I use, every program, without exception, can run on OS X and on Windows 10. Which means that I don't care what OS I'm using, because I don't use it. I literally, what do I do with the OS? I find my program and I double click it. And then I'm away.
I tell you, for me, I was a PC user for absolutely years. And I've always been particularly geeky about building machines, and I used to build gaming PCs for people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that with Apple anymore. All the fucking RAM's soldered onto the boards, and it's like, there's no upgradability. All that's been taken away from you. But yet, I find myself drawn to their products for some mysterious reason. And I think it's part of some weird social manipulation that they've put upon me that I must use Apple products. I love them. I don't care that they're expensive. I love them. In fact, I've converted all of my family and friends to Apple. Apple, and now we're all having to remortgage and stuff like that. But,
it's funny. On mobile, I'm an Apple convert. I've had iPhones, apart from one exception, since the 3GS. I've had iPad minis. I've got an iPad Pro. But for my desktop machines, I'm too far down the rabbit hole with building my own machines now, and I love it because I don't really do it for other people. That's the thing. I can talk for days about it, but I'm not pressured into doing it for every Tom, Dick, and Harry these days.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if I was going to have a Martin Luther King Jr. moment, have a dream.
Yeah.
I would dream that Apple would just sell their OS as a separate OS like Microsoft did, so that you could just build your own machine and have it run Mac OS. That would be an absolute dream. But that's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think for me, the spell's been broken too many times. I've had to spend far too much time in Mac OS X's terminal for, the spell's been broken for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because, I've been a system admin, again, working in IT, maintaining Linux servers, and then having to go into a mate's Mac, and he can't do half the stuff because his user permissions are broken. I'm literally pulling up what is pretty much a Linux terminal and fixing the permissions that way, and I'm looking at it like, this is just a fancy distro of Linux.
Well, it is, basically. That's exactly what it is. There is a particular build of Linux. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It looks about, I would say, 90% identical to OS X. Because that's what it's based on, essentially. And it works in a very, very similar way. But jumping back to the new Mac Pro, there is one particular piece about that I think is super exciting for video guys, and that's the Afterburner card. So
really, because
Have you seen that thing in action?
I have. It can process ProRes, which is cool because I film all my content in ProRes. It can do 8K, but no more efficiently, really, at the resolutions I work at than a highly threaded processor can do.
No, but if you think about the load that's taking off the processor, because I was reading that it can play back 8 streams of 8K in real time.
Yeah, I tend to use 2 streams of 4K maximum. I'm looking at it going, who's this for? You know?
Well, yeah, that's though. If you're like, a movie production house that's making, feature films or whatever, that afterburner card's going to be absolutely amazing. Like, to be able to run that. I mean, if you stack 2-3 of them.
But production houses don't use ProRes. They'll use something like OpenEXR. They have really high bandwidth, really high throughput footage, or they'll use like Red Raw footage. They literally don't use the formats that the afterburner card supports. So who's it for?
It's for people like me that have got less money and less sense than money, and not enough money to buy it.
That's it. I mean, it's...
The people want to make YouTube videos and say, I've got an afterburner card and I rendered this in like 20 seconds.
It's the same people for me that are people who would like overclock using liquid nitrogen. It's like, yeah, good for you, buddy. Let's see that in everyday work.
Yeah, you seen that geezer on YouTube? Oh god, what's his name now? Marquez Brownlee.
Yes.
He's the geezer that buys the afterburner card.
Yeah, and I don't like him and I don't watch his stuff.
The guy's like, so I'm going to review this brand new Apple iPhone and I'm going to shoot it in 15K on a top of the range red camera. It's like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, and their answer is always because I can.
Yeah, his studio tour is ludicrous. There's probably about $1 million worth of gear. Like, for what exactly? Well, because you can, I suppose.
Whereas you look around my studio, I mean, I'm proud of my studio, but I'm like, eBay. Found them in a disused building. eBay.
This is what we have to suffer as audio engineers. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said, though, for making what you have work for you. The answer is always buying gear.
Yes, the answer is always buying gear. Buy gear cheap.
Yeah, buy it as cheap as you can.
Yes.
But, do you know what I think? We're kind of getting towards this topic, something that I wanted to bring up. Get your thoughts on this, right?
Yeah,
So,
I'll even switch back to this view and we'll come back to the news, because we're obviously not talking about the news right now. Go on.
The thing that really bothers me at the moment, right, is the amount amp sims coming to market. It's like 1 a week.
Yeah, but that's to me that's the same as it's always been, which is where only the strong survive. Who goes out and buys Amplitude these days, for example?
Well, that's true.
I am considering buying some of the Neural DSP stuff, and I've got a JCM 800 and a 5150 and Zilla cabs, and I'm looking at this going, I might buy this.
It does look good.
Well,
have you seen that Tone Hub thing that's just been released?
Yeah, that's Lasse Lammert's one.
Yeah, like, is it STL Tone Hub?
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of almost Kemper-ish.
Yes. Now, I have a Kemper.
Right.
So I looked at this and I was like, so they've basically taken the Kemper profiles and they've turned them into software. So, and then I see all these guys online who are Kemper users, Axe-Effects users, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, this tone hub, it sounds so sick, it's amazing." I'm like, it's literally identical.
Yeah.
It literally just ported the Kemper profiles and found a way to host them in their own software. It sounds no different. Why would you buy it twice?
Well, that's a good question. It's funny. I've always liked the convenience of guitar sims, even when the sound quality hasn't quite been up to scratch. Which is why if I'm recording at home, I tend to use an amp sim. If I'm recording in the studio, I tend to use a real amp. because one of my favourite things about them is that I can open it later and go, actually, I didn't want so much mids in the amp. Open up, less, done. And actually going back and reamping that would be a massive pain in the dick.
To be honest, the way I've tended to do it these days now is, since obtaining the Kemper, it's pretty much revolutionised the way that I would record guitars, because now we can dick around, get the guitarist to find a tone that they like. We can do all the amp blending and all that kind of thing. But when I actually track, I record the amplified tone and a DI at the same time.
Right.
Just in case. Because then I know that the DI lines up perfect to the bar with the amp track. So, for instance, then if I need to do microscopic edits, I can actually edit the DI and link the tracks, and I know that it's pulling the amplified tone perfectly with the DI. So I can tap to transient on the DI.
Yeah.
The amp tone, which is kind of helpful.
That's interesting. For me, that depends very much on the band and the genre. Like a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks now actually, I had a punk band in the studio. Did I want DIs? Nah. It's a punk band. They literally 1, 2, 3, 4, go, and that is it. And we listen back to the take and go, do you like it? And they go yes or no. And if they go no, I go, right, do it again. It was more of the classic Ross Robinson style production of throw a plant pot at them and go, it was shit, do it again. And when they were happy, they were happy. And then the mix was literally just make it sound good and do not edit it.
Yeah, that's I've had a few sessions like that over the years, but I don't know, man. There's something about the Kemper that I think the biggest thing for me. I've played through an Acoustics, and for me the Kemper beats it. I've got a lot of amp sims. I own a lot of amp sims and have done over the years, and the Kemper beats them as well. Purely for it's not really a sound quality thing. It's to do with, I think, I don't know whether this is like some sort of placebo or something, but for me, the Kemper replicates one thing that everything else doesn't, and that's the feel of the amp. It feels more like an amp to play, so that gets more performance out of the guitarist because they can play into the tone more.
Right.
Particularly on low end, like, you know how like the Dual Rex have got that very famous kind of rounded bottom end on. So
yeah, which I always shelf off.
Absolutely, but it's a lot more 3D in the Kemper. So when you really pick at, it sounds like you've got one in the room with you.
Right. Yeah, you get that real chum 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 kind of thing.
You really get that amp feel. It responds like a real amp would.
Right.
And that's what I love about it. That's why I wouldn't ever give it up. Now, I still use amp sims all the time because they're super convenient, right? But in terms of, I've never not used the Kemper with any band I've had here since I got it. I love it. And on all the new amp sims they bring out, all I've got to do is go onto Kemper's website and search up a profile of that amp as identical. And I'm like, I'm not paying you scumbags $200 for software that I can get a profile of free.
Well, yeah, that's half the point, isn't it? You're supposed to profile your own stuff.
Yeah, so they've got the Kemper have this rig exchange, and there's currently, I think last time I loaded it up, there was like 28,000 rigs on. Man, there's literally everything you can shake a stick at. The rarest boutique amps you can think of, someone's got one and they've profiled.
Right.
It's super handy, and it's all completely free of charge. I mean, obviously, there are companies selling Kemper packs.
Yes.
Of which I own several. Some of them are excellent. Some of them are dog shit. In my experience, some of them I really don't like.
Yeah.
I tell you one that I found a particular letdown, and I'm sure people who are viewing this are going to be screaming in the comments about what a dick I am. But I really didn't like the Will Putney one.
No.
Really didn't like it. Considering if you listen to any of Putney's records, his guitar tones are absolutely crushing.
Yeah.
He's known for having insanely thick guitars, like super aggressive. And you put his Kemper pack on and I flick through the presets of all these. He's got some that are just like raw amps, and then he's got some which are more like album tones, where he's basically profiled the whole chain that he had. And I sit back and listen to that and I think, bullshit.
Well,
There's absolutely no way.
Well, he probably has, but that misses a critical point for me. The signal chains, proper analog signal chains, even from the microphone right the way through, react in a certain way. They're non-linear. That's the whole point. You try and capture that, and Kemper's profiling system is not designed to incorporate that.
No. And some of the profiles sound... There's no way I can really describe it other than some of them have absolutely hideous amounts of gain. Hideous of gain. To the point where any clarity in the guitars they just sound like mush.
Right, it's just rum, 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 rum.
Yeah, you get to that point on an amp where you've got clean, slightly dirty, really nice gain band that you want to be in for kind of, and then you get to that bit above it where it just goes into electronic fuzz.
Yeah.
A lot of his profiles are up in that top band. They're so gainy.
I know that all too well, because my favourite amp is a 5150. And yeah, it's all too easy to take that amp into... Excuse me, rum and coke there. Into so much gain that there's no detail left.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, it's funny, only a couple of days ago I was reamping an old pop-punk track and using a 5150, which doesn't sound like it should work, but it really did. But I was using the lead channel, the red channel, and I had the gain on it on about 3. And that was more than enough. It absolutely chugged away.
That's what I'm talking about. So I'm working with a band at the moment, and we're using a 5150 profile, and the gain's on 3.3.
There you go. Yeah, if you're
savage.
Yeah, if you're attacking the guitar properly, it just screams at you. Yeah.
5150 is like one of the most versatile amps ever made. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, it's an old mate of mine's got a block letter 5150, but he's used it for years. But he's not a metal guy. He's a genuine Van Halen fan. He's significantly older than I am, so he bought the amp in his 20s when they were new, and he's never sold it. But some of his best guitar tones, he uses that lead channel, but rolls on his Stratocaster the volume back to about 1. And it's clean. And I mean clean on the lead channel, but then if he digs in a little, it crunches a bit. And then he can go to crunchy, really crunchy, solo that will kill you, just with the volume knob on his amp. And that's what real amps do that models often don't.
Yes.
That's the key.
That, to me, is one of the downfalls of the Kemper. Because when someone profiles an amp, they are profiling the amp as it is in that particular period of time. Whatever the gain setting was on it, that's what's being profiled, right? So in terms of, if you get a profile and leave it exactly as it's been set, it'll sound perfect.
Right.
If you start to dick around with the bass, treble, mids, it can sound a bit weird and unnatural. So I tend to find, if I'm going to go lower gain, which on a 5150, nobody should be using any more than 5 on gain ever, in my opinion. It's just not necessary.
Yeah.
Sound like arse.
That's the thing. People don't realise that gain is actually short for additional gain. Like, if you've got really low output pickups, you turn your gain up to match. It's not there so you can have more gain. It's there so that you can compensate for not kicking it in the front hard enough.
The amount of times I've had a band come into me and I've been like, we're just going to turn that gain right down. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, just trust me. Turn the gain down. And then they track it. You listen back to it and they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, yeah, having your gain on 11 makes it sound like shit.
Yeah. Just don't. Yeah.
I love 5150s. I love them. And the thing I really like, if you're into that whole Putney-esque amp blending game, take other amps really, really well. You can couple them with diesels, VHTs. I've had Cornfords with them. RS Archons, they just take anything well.
I've just got, and it's the most beautiful thing. I got one of those Marshall JCM 800 Studios, the little 20-watt thing.
Oh, yeah.
My God. Because you can turn the preamp and the full output, just dime them, and not die. It does that JCM 800 thing that you expect on a record. Because anybody else, if you're a normal human and you've got a JCM 800, you turn the preamp volume beyond about 6, and your master's on 2 because otherwise you're pinned against the wall. But it doesn't sound very good. And people are like, oh, it's not got as much gain as I thought. It's like, yeah, turn everything on 10, step out of the room and watch the fireworks.
Yeah, true. A friend of mine had a Marshall years back now. I can't remember exactly what model it was, but it was one of them like old 50s ones that didn't have a gain channel or a leave to clean channel.
Yeah, Plexi.
A Plexi, yeah. It's a like 50s Plexi.
Right.
And so proper AC/DC style, if you want it to have more gain, you just turn it up as loud as it'll go till it breaks up.
Yeah, and you break up first.
Yeah, like the problem was he didn't have like an attenuator, like a
Yes.
pop or whatever. And we went into the studio to track with it, and I swear to God, you were picking it up on the talkback mic in the control room. It was
wow.
that loud. It was unbelievably loud. Extremely loud. And to get it to sound the way we wanted it to sound, it had to be on literally full blast. And you could literally feel like the door of the control room sucking closed with the air.
Awesome.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. That's why I'm really happy with our studio, is we can do that. Like, I can have the 5150. I mean, usually the 5150, you put the output on 2 or 3. But if you want that real, what do you call it? That real kill switch engage, Rose of Sharon, crunchy, squidgy, you put the post output to about 8. And people die, but you get that tone. But yeah, I've got 2 walls with double air gaps in between me and the live room. There's a good 6 feet, 8 feet between me and the live room because of the way we constructed it. And you can still feel the floor moving.
Nice.
And my co-host and good friend Liam lives 2 floors above me in the studio. And when I do that, he sends me a text and says, can you turn it down? You're upsetting the dogs. Despite the fact that everything's like floating floors, floating walls, everything. My God, those amps can kick.
They can, but that's because of the very nature of their design, and that's
right.
There's something about the PV5150 that they just absolutely nailed. There has never been an amp like it. It's so simple in its design. It doesn't contain any fancy bullshit. It's just a fucking amp. It's just tubes. And it's just so good. I absolutely love them. I would love to own a real one. And as I say, on my go-to Kemper profile is a block ladder 5150.
Right.
It's just it's a delicious beast.
We should talk sometime about maybe doing some profiles of yours and my own.
I was going to say what we should do is I'll bring the Kemper down to your studio.
Yes.
The real one versus the Kemper variant.
That would be awesome. And at the same time, actually do some captures, because I've got some wonderful Zilla cabs. I've got all the mics we could possibly need. Including, I've got a vintage 421, I've got some, I've got a Transformalist 57, I've got all sorts of stuff.
Oh, that's a plan.
Yes.
As soon as we're out of the station.
As soon as we've been to the Winchester and this is all blown over.
Yeah, profiling. That's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll have some fun with that, absolutely. Right, I'll just add that to my list as video number 17 and 18 on the list.
See, it's I am partially ashamed to say that as a Kemper owner, I've never actually used the feature ever.
Well, it'd be fun to learn, you know. Let's try it.
As I'm aware, it's super easy.
Right.
Just plug in, plug the Kemper in, press profile, and it makes loads of weird noise. 10 minutes later, it's done. I think it's like frequency sweeps and stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes loads of weird, chirpy, quacky sounds. It tries to sound like a forest.
Like sonar works when you measure in a room with it.
Yeah, But even more, I have heard a Kemper profile, and it sounds, imagine combining the Sonarworks stuff with just a forest full of birds and other animals. It's weird, but it's cool.
Hey, it works.
It does.
So,
it just so happens at the moment that at the studio I've got a rack full of 2,000 watt QSC power amps. So I can take full advantage before I sell them on.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So, you said you had other amps besides 5150?
Well, right now, I've got that one. I've got a 6505, which I'm making a video literally comparing the two to go, they're the same amp. Listen.
Yeah, people have a thing about coveting certain eras of 5150, and it's like, well, they've never changed the design, to be honest.
Yeah, they literally haven't changed the design. I opened them up and looked at them, and they are the same.
Yeah, and you know, the thing I really like about the 5150 is how affordable it is.
Yeah.
Today, you know, if you look at like a dual rec or something, that'll run you $2,000, man, easy for a new these.
For a new one, yeah.
Like 600 quid.
Yeah. Which is insane for what it is. It's got 9 valves in the damn thing.
It's one of the best metal amps ever made.
Yeah.
Hands down. I mean, if you think about it, like, all of these huge bands, right, that have been and gone and still exist, at some point in their careers have probably used a 50.
Oh, absolutely.
The only band I can think of that are huge and super heavy and have never used a 5150 is Slipknot.
Slipknot, yeah.
I think they've ever used them.
No, but then I don't know. They're one of them's a gear snob and the other isn't. So
yeah, they did for a while. They used them Bagheera amps, didn't they?
Did they? No, Rivera.
Rivera, yes, Rivera.
Paul, sorry, not Paul. Mick Thompson knows the guys from Rivera and got them to custom build an amp for him, which he used for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if he's using it at the minute, but
yeah, Rivera's, they're basically modded Marshalls.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Kind of like
a 5150, which is essentially a JMP Marshall with lots of gain stages in it.
Yeah, essentially. And do you know what? When I think about the 5150, I get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and I think that's mostly internal organ damage from listening to them over the years.
No. I grew up as a bass player, so all my organs are actually a foot to the left.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a veteran drummer, so you know, if anything, I'm going to be in a wheelchair in about 6 months. I can feel the arthritis catching up with me. But I tell you something though, there's only one amp I've ever heard, and I don't prefer it to a 5150, but it's certainly up there. So one of my best friends, we've been in like loads together over years, right when we were kids, man. I've known the guy like 20 years. And we stumbled into there's a music shop in Stockport, and it's down some back alley somewhere. I forget what it's called. It might not even be there anymore.
Where's that? Sorry, that cut out.
Stockport.
Right.
So just as you come off the main road where the Lamborghini garage is,
right,
down that little hill, there was used to be this music shop tucked away somewhere, and the name escapes me. But anyway, we were in there one, and he stumbled across this amp, which was a Framus Dragon.
Oh, good God. Framuses, they blow your face off. The Dragon, not the Cobra.
No, it was the Dragon, right? It was the Dragon head.
Wow.
Now, it was custom coloured in like this weird tangerine orange. And the guy in the store said, oh, yeah, someone from the Happy Mondays used to have it. And he was like, okay. So we bought it. And it sounded incredible. It was so creamy. Like, the harder you drove it, the creamier it sounded. Delicious. Wow. And he spoke to Framus, phoned them up, because he started having an issue with it where it was blowing tubes all the time.
Right.
So he spoke to Framus to see if they could repair it for him. And he gave them the serial number over the phone, and they were like, is this orange? And he was like, yeah, it is. Why? And they were like, yeah. So that was made custom. It's the only one in the world in that colour. And it was made for the Happy Mondays, and they actually still owe us the money. Never paid for it.
Wow.
So what the guy was saying in the store was actually true. He basically sold it for crap.
Wow.
Traded it in, and he never paid framers for it. They were like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Just send it in, and we'll sort it out for you because we've literally not seen it since it left the factory. It disappeared."
It's funny, things seem to go missing. Like, one of my favourite cabs that I've got is one of my Zilla cabs. The only one that I've not ordered from Zilla personally. I got it off Facebook Marketplace. And I was asking Paul from Zilla about it. And he said, "Oh, that one, I recognise that." There were 3 identical ones given to a band who he wouldn't name. And they went on tour and they never paid for them. And so, of course, this one had changed several hands and turned up in my hands. And luckily for me, Paul said, "You know what? It's been such a long time. We're friends. Keep it."
That is what it is.
Yeah, wow.
You know, it's a nice thing when they do it. I mean, I think it's particularly cool of framers to say that because it was literally a one-off, one of a kind, and they could have said, "Actually, we want that back," but they were just like, "Yeah, cool, send it into Berlin, we'll sort it."
Yeah, I suppose a company like that, it's on stock inventory as tax write-off after a certain time, and...
Of course it is, yeah, they don't really care.
No.
But, oh man, speaking of unfortunate gear sales, that same guy owned one of the early Black Machines. And I remember the day he brought that home. It was like watching your first child be born. It was just such a delicious gift, and he sold it. Right?
What?
Yeah, he sold it. So he like doubled his money on it, but he sold it. And then, of course, as all good regrets, a couple of years later, he was like, "Damn, I wish I hadn't sold that Black Machine." You know. So he started trying to hunt it down because he still got the owner's certificate.
Oh.
When he sold it on, and the guy never asked for it, so he still got the original owner's certificate, which has the serial number on. So he started trying to trace this serial number, and he found it on eBay.
Oh.
As luck would have it, and guess how much it sold for?
8 grand?
10.
Far.
10 grand.
I'm guessing it was a B2 Black Machine.
A B2.
Yeah, well that's it. You just can't find them.
Well, he stopped making them, Doug.
Has he?
Yeah.
Right.
At least for now.
I know a while ago he'd stopped taking orders for them.
Yeah, well, that's still the case. My friend got back in touch with him and said, "Doug, I made a really bad mistake and I sold this Black Machine and I really want another." And he was like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
Stop making them. Shouldn't have sold it, should you?
Yeah. So I know the guy from Feline Guitars was making the B6s.
Man, if you've never played one, it's a life-changing experience.
And
that's coming from a drummer.
I've played some damn good guitars. It'll probably be up there.
Oh my word, it's so... I can't even describe it. It doesn't feel like any other guitar I've ever played. It's like, certain guitars are really distinctive. Like you get like a Les Paul, and you've got that Les Paul neck, and you're playing a Les Paul.
Yeah.
If someone put it in your hand while you were blindfolded, you'd know it was a Les Paul.
Yeah.
It's got that feeling. You would know it was a Black Machine. It's
right.
Just got super. The action and the way it plays and the way the fretboard is like. You can just tell it's designed for aggressive music. It just makes you want to dig into it, and the harder you dig in, it's got this like high mid growl. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. I wish you hadn't got rid of it.
It's funny. I think between me and my dad, we're both guitar collectors. There's one guitar that will never sell between us, and that's it. It's a one of a kind PRS USA Tremonti. And it's like a Black Machine. It's hard to describe. The top is quilted maple, single piece, not quarter saw, not cut. It's literally one piece.
Wow.
Yeah. And the neck's flame maple, and the ebony's like rock. And yeah, you start to play it, and you're looking down at your left hand going, "What are you doing? I've not told you to do anything yet." And your left hand's going, and you're like, "Whoa, dude." Yeah, you're looking at your hand going, this is possessed, what's happening?
Yeah, I know exactly the feeling. Funnily enough, another friend of mine, his uncle, has got an original, I think it's a 59 Les Paul.
Really?
Yeah, an original, and he bought it when he was in his 20s. He's never gigged it. He keeps it in the case. It's insured to high heaven, and it is immaculate. It's not got a single mark on it.
Wow.
And I went over to his house, and he was like, probably like the second or third time I'd met him, and he was like, "So I guess you want to see the Les Paul, don't you?" And I was like, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." And he brought it down, got it out, put it in my lap, and I was like, "Oh my god, it feels like a piece of history." So good. And that's one of them guitars that you just kind of remember. So buttery.
It's funny that certain Les Pauls, every heavy Les Paul, it's like a fight with it. A lot of guitarists say that. My number one recording guitar actually is a 2013 Les Paul, which has bare knuckle juggernauts in it, but which just to completely defeat the point of a Les Paul almost. But it's not chambered or anything. It weighs as much as a small cow, and when you finish playing a session with it, you know you've been playing it. And I'm a bass player. My shoulders are pretty tough because I play like 6 and 7 string basses, so I play some heavy stuff. And this guitar, I'm going, geez, this is heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy, aren't they?
Yeah, but you dig into it and you get that low mid bark where you're just like, grrr, yep, okay, cool, we're on.
I actually think that the Les Paul started out life as an acoustic, but what they decided to do was fill the body with cement.
And lead, yeah.
That is the only way they can get it. It's like you're lifting it out of the case is an effort on its own. Like you have to use an engine crane to lift it up and then mount it on your neck, sort of truss.
Yeah. True enough. Right, we best crack on with the news. It's supposed to be an hour-long show, and we've already gone for an hour and a half, and we talked about one news article, so...
All right, onward.
Onward! So, Bandcamp will support independent artists in the wake of the thing that's going on. Apparently, they're going to be giving full payment for anything you buy on Bandcamp and not taking a cut. So that's interesting. How they're going to carry on, I don't know. But I suppose for them, if it's a few weeks of interruption in money in exchange for really good PR, that could be worth its weight in gold for Bandcamp.
Yeah. And do you know who I think should follow suit? Spotify.
All of them.
Spotify rape artists of every last cent they can get their hands on.
Yeah, although what I've heard from that is that's a bit of a half-told tale, that apparently it's actually most musicians' contracts that get them. Graham Nash was saying, I got £2,000 from X number of million plays. And I sat down and worked it out, because I've got stuff on Spotify. If I made the number of plays that he did, I would have made about $600,000 off Spotify plays. Which means that his record label are taking him to the cleaners.
Properly.
And then they're going, oh, it's Spotify, it's these streaming... It's like, sure, whatever, mate. You actually believed your record label? Then you're dumber than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, you must know at that point that you get fisted. Like, I looked at this, right? So, the song Bad Guy, Billie Eilish, that's got 1.5 billion plays on Spotify.
Right.
Her net worth is $8 million. That's it.
No, that can't be right.
That is right. It's absolutely true. I looked it up the other night. Her net worth is only... So she's making absolutely nothing. I mean, put it this way. If I read somewhere that Spotify pay something like 33 cents per stream, something like that, which means that 1.5 billion would be like $600 million. She's only worth 8. Where's the rest gone?
Where did this calculation of net worth come from, though? Did it come from a record label?
No, I'm sure it was something like Forbes or something I was reading, the list every year. You can check out people's net worth.
Oh yeah, but net worth is basically bollocks. And net worth, you have to declare what you're worth at the end of your tax year. That's probably it. She's probably not done a tax return for this year yet.
Well, I've not really made much.
Yeah, but next year they'll look at her net worth and go, actually, geez, she made a lot more than we thought. Yeah, of course she did. She's bloody famous.
Yeah, 1.5 billion streams later. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, for everybody who's paying $10 a month or whatever it is for Spotify, that's going to add up quick. The percentage is low. It is low, but over X number of streams, yeah.
I'm saying it's like, on average, they're paying, say, well, if they're paying 33 cents in every dollar, let's say, still, that's a lot of money. So if you're talking like,
I've not heard 33 cents a dollar. I've heard more like 0.33 cents.
Yeah, something. I might be getting my maths wrong, but yeah.
A couple of factors out, yeah.
Yeah, the factors out. But even so, that factor of 1.5 billion plays, that's a lot of dough.
That is.
Even when you're getting wrong money.
Well, she's not just on Spotify. She's on iTunes. You can buy her stuff.
Yeah, and Tidal and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and on iTunes especially, even if sales are relatively low, you get at least half the money off that. Yeah. That much I know. Apple take about a 30% cut. So if your album's $10, you get $6, $7 off that. Let's be conservative and say $6. She makes 100,000 sales at $6. That's 600,000. That's a good start. From one revenue source.
She's made millions of sales, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would have thought so too. So I'm literally just pie in the sky in a number there. Yeah. And so I think her actual net worth is a lot more than her tax returns to date have suggested.
100%.
Because that's the thing. The other thing is personal net worth versus company net worth. They can hide a lot. Like,
as all good tax-paying citizens should.
Yeah, like Billie Eilish might be worth $8 million. Eilish Music Industries might be worth $150 million.
Yeah, Eilish Holdings.
Exactly, yeah. That's it.
Private island.
Yeah. If you're stupid enough to do a Willie Nelson and just take all the money and then spend it all and not bother until the IRS come knocking on your door, that's your own fault. I think the industry's learnt from that. You know the story of Willie Nelson? That he literally did that. He made millions, spent millions on like women and weed and shit. And then the IRS came knocking on his door like, where's my tax? And he's like, I haven't got any money. And they're like, right, prison time.
And he was like, okay.
Yeah. But everyone else went, let's not do that.
Well, if there's one person that you don't steal from, it's the IRS.
Yeah, I mean...
They will literally take your shit off you, your house, everything.
Yep. And stick you in a small stone box until you're finished, yeah.
Yeah, which is why we use the term tax avoidance rather than tax evasion.
Quite. Yeah. Right, let's move on to the next article. Rick and Morty. I'm not the biggest Rick and Morty fan. I do find it quite funny. But my friends at Audient have released a video with a guy called Ryan Elder who does the music for Rick and Morty about being inside the music. I thought this was really awesome. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. It came out 2 days ago, but I will. But yeah, if you're a Rick and Morty fan, this is a real in-depth behind the music. Audient literally recently did a video for... Have you heard of 2 Point Hospital?
No.
It's a new game. Do you remember Theme Hospital?
Oh, wait, yeah. I have. I saw it on the PlayStation App Store the other day, the game store.
Yeah, so it's like a sequel to Theme Hospital, but because it's not owned by the same people, they had to call it something else. But these two guys did pretty much all the sound. and the guys at Audion know them, and so they made a really interesting video about it. And so now the guy from Rick and Morty is doing a very similar thing. So, yeah, he's pretty much soundtracked the entire thing on his own in his home studio. And so Audion have done a video about it, which is very, very cool of them to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's very clever of companies to do stuff like this, because this doesn't directly benefit Audion, but they can now say, we're the cool kids. We're doing videos about stuff that people think is awesome.
Yeah, and of course, I guess it's all about brand awareness as well. Like,
yes.
There's going to be bedroom producers out there who are just starting out, for instance, that have never heard of Audion before.
Yeah, it's funny. So many starting out producers that I see, because at this point, I've had a few views on my videos and people comment stuff, and a lot of the time it's, I bought a Focusrite interface, a basic one, and it's terrible, what can I do? And it's like, I have nothing against Focusrite as a company, their higher end stuff is high end. Oh, I unplugged my headphones there. But for me, their lower end stuff goes wanting sometimes.
Yes, I would agree.
But Audience cater to their audience right down to the very basics, and that's one of the reasons that I become friends with them, because I've been reviewing interfaces for different companies for a while, and these guys got it right down to the bottom. Everything just works nicely, sounds good, and not just like hit record, play it back, oh, there's my voice, but like no noise floor, stuff like that professionals care about, but beginners often don't until they hit that roadblock.
Yeah, or they don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, and then you start getting comments about like, I'm using this guitar amp sim and there's loads of noise, please help. And then you're like, well, what interface are you using? And they go, well, I'm using this Behringer or Focusrite or whatever interface. And you're like, well, there's your issue.
Behringer, one of the worst audio companies, I think, on the market. I don't know why everything they make is garbage.
It's funny. I'm starting to change my mind on Behringer, but not with the cheapest stuff.
Apart from the patch bays, the Ultra patch is pretty good. I'll give them that.
They know how to make a piece of cable.
Yeah, but honestly, you can't really get that wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and they did that ADAT.
88,000, yes.
Yes, that's not bad.
I've never actually had one. I kept meaning to buy one and ended up with higher quality gear, just because of the way that the studio's gone over the years. But
yeah, but I mean, they've got the fingers in almost every pie. And they don't do it well. They're like bang average in every field.
that could be their slogan.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's like, if you want a guitar, they make several. They're not great and they're not dreadful, but they do make them.
Bang average in every field, Behringer.
Bang average in every field, Behringer. That's it. That's what their company slogan should be. You could literally make an entire recording studio from their equipment. They sell mics, interfaces, patch bays, outboard compressors. They make literally everything.
I've actually got a Behringer B1 mic somewhere, and it's okay.
Do you know what? I've got one of them somewhere. I don't know where it's gone, but
it's one of the most reliable mics I think I've ever had. I could probably record underwater with it, and it'd keep going.
I've got a Rode NT1A as well.
Oh, classic. Is it one of the really, really low noise floor ones?
Yes.
Yeah, they've got a use for me. The NT1A, I personally don't like the sound of it as like a vocal singing mic, but it's got applications because the noise floor is so ridiculously low. I can use it in contexts for like filming where I can have it sneakily off camera with really high gain on it and use it for ambience and stuff because it's not got a snowy noise floor on. It's actually quite a clever utility mic.
Yes, and I'll tell you one thing about the they're really, really easy to modify. there's actually a website specialising in modifying NT1s and making them to essentially U87s.
Huh. It's not Octava mod, is it?
Not sure.
Because Octava, they were changing mostly like American Nady amps, but I think he's kind of retired now, as of this year. But I always wanted a Michael Jolie Octava mod mic, because people raved about them.
There's a few websites, I think, where you can pick the kits up to. It basically uses the shell of the NT1A and some of the internal components, but replaces the capsule and some of the other electronics, and you can basically turn it into almost any. But I know that the U87 mod is a popular one.
Right. To be honest, I've got 2 SE Electronics Voodoo ribbons and a really clean set of preamps, and then a Slate ML1. I don't use much else now. Because I can make ribbons sound like most things, and I've got the modelling mic that does everything else.
Yeah, I'm interested to have a look at that when I come and visit your place.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of things about the ML1, but I've never actually tried one.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I lusted after a U87, a vintage U87 for so long. Then I got the ML1 and was like, nope, done.
So I am currently using the Aston Origin.
The smaller one, the Origin.
The Origin.
Very good mic. I had one in the studio for quite a while. I kind of regret sending it back because it was for review. Yeah.
So I got an email off Aston probably about 5 years ago. And it's when they kind of first started up as a brand.
Yeah.
They were like, essentially they were saying, like, you know, in exchange for some promotion of the brand, we get a discount on the microphone, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I just frankly didn't really need one, and I just had a kid, and I was like, spending any money on a microphone I don't need. So I didn't, but I retained the geezer's email, and I emailed him back like just chance like a year ago, and I was, you know, that deal you offered me on that mic, is that still a thing? And he was like, yeah, I can probably hook that up for you. So I got one with a discount, and bought it. And you know what? It's a nice piece. It's a nice piece of kit.
I really like the Aston stuff, actually, yeah. I mean, you could probably use it as a cricket bat and then record with it again. That's also a good plus. Because there are certain singers I won't really let near my nice microphones.
Yeah, because
either they're young and irresponsible or just wild. I have a long-standing memory of a lovely singer who was in my studio when we really first started out nearly 10 years ago, who was blind, and I've still got the dent in my vocal mic that I was using at that time, from where she knocked the entire stand over.
Yeah, to be fair, I remember buying, when I bought the HD 650s, a friend of mine was over doing some mix revisions on one of his band's songs, and he wanted to have a listen in the HD 650. And he did, and, you know, blah, 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 went through the mix notes, all good. And then instead of handing them back to me, he threw them across the room and said, catch, and they now have a dent in one of the ear cups, and I'd owned them for less than 24 hours.
Now I'll just quickly show my 650s to the camera here. So that's one side, which is rusty as hell. That's the other side, where the mesh is entirely missing. I'm on my 4th cable with these. They've literally been round the world. I've stopped almost caring about these things. They're my trusty workhorses. I do have a set of pristine 650s, but they're actually at my old assistant Chris's house. It's still in the box. I need to go and get them. But yeah, I would say treasure and look after your 650s, or beat them to death like me and use them as a hammer. And they are the hammer with which I nail mixes.
Honestly, they're so reliable.
Yeah.
I love them. And the only thing I've ever found that's come close to them, or in fact seeded them, was the headphones that I tried in Berlin.
Right.
They are something else.
I have to say that, I mean, I do really swear by these 650s, but when I got Sonar Works, I had to stop and shed a couple of tears because I realised just how much sub I'd been missing and how often I'd been letting things get through on mixes in the ultra low end.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing about 650s is they don't really do anything by default below about 60 hertz, even though the manual says they do. They don't do enough of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing I found really shocking. So I go down to Head Audio in Berlin, get the whole factory tour and blah blah blah, have a good chat with them all, and then they let me try on a pair of these headphones. Now, in a nutshell, they are supposedly sending me a pair for review and spares.
Yes.
Well, at the moment, they're hand making every single pair. So
right.
With orders at the minute. And when I was in Berlin, they had an order come in for like 85 pairs.
Whoa.
For somebody in Japan. So I really wanted to send you away with a pair. But, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to send them to Japan. So I will send you some when I get some. I'm like, yeah, all right, well, no worries. When I get them, if I've already been to yours or whatever, I'll bring them down here. And I swear to God, they're going to change your life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested to be revealed new things, if you know what I mean. But
they are incredible.
Like, I had the blessing and curse, in some ways, of having the audiophile world revealed to me very early on. That, like, not with headphones, but with monitors, I've never been quite able to afford or attain some of the clarity that I've had. Like, when I was 19 or 20, I was going out with a girl and I went to stay at her parents' house over, I think it was Christmas, New Year. And her dad had a set of quad speakers, if you know quad.
Yeah.
Electrostatic speakers, which are not the way that speakers are made usually. Like, it doesn't have a cone and a woofer, it's literally like a wall that's electrically charged. It's incredible. And I put this album on that was the most brutal metal. It was James LeBrie's solo album at the time, which had Mike Mangini on drums, and it was just brutal. And it was the clearest thing I've ever heard, and I was just sat there with my mouth open for an hour. And then I went back to university, where I was in Huddersfield, and they had these Genelec 1030A speakers, which are about the size of me per side. And were ridiculous. It was something like a 15-inch woofer 3-way monitor, and I was mixing tracks on these things and just going like looking at the guitarist going, did you sneeze? And it's like, no, the drummer's in the live room on the other side of the live room, and it sounded like he was next to me, and I'm like, this is weird. I've never quite been able to attain that clarity since.
I think you might get in the ballpark with these. I sat down and listened to them for a few minutes. I listened to some songs I listened to some of my own mixes, a few bits and bobs, and I was just, it's not often this happens, but I was properly astonished at how great they are. They're unbelievable. And it's, the only way I can describe it is they don't sound like you're wearing headphones. So, like with the 650s, you're very aware of the fact that you're wearing headphones, you can kind of feel.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
With these, it sounds like you're in a room with some really high. You just don't feel the pressure on your head. You don't feel like the speaker's right next to your ear. It's got this sense of depth that I just cannot describe. It's insane. And it's like, wow. Especially awesome. Orchestral music is absolutely insane. So, they're not cheap, put it that way. They're like 15 quid a pair.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if I can get my hands on some, I'll bring them over.
Awesome. It's funny, like, things that you realise with properly calibrated systems that you just didn't know. Like, one of my reference tracks when I'm setting up a new system is Skrillex's Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, which, because it's so testing of a system, I didn't realise that, do you know what, that song, that it's got that, yes, oh my god, it cuts every half a bar, and there's that boo. That's mono. I didn't know that, because most systems, the room reflections get you some sort of compromising in the system, makes it sound wider than it actually is, but a properly calibrated system, you sit there and you go, that's mono, that's stereo, that's mono, that's stereo, because it keeps changing, because he does that as an effect, and it's very clever. But yeah, in a properly calibrated system, I'm sat there going, how did I not realise this?
Yeah, it's crazy what you can kind of hear, like, when you get up to that upper echelon. And for me, that was, like, when I bought them head monitors, that was one of the first things I noticed, particularly in the mid-range.
Yeah.
I came from Yamaha HS80s.
Wow, right, yeah, that's going to be a shift.
Multiple levels above, and I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to go all in, just all in and get some Type 20s. But again, I got them on a deal where I basically saved almost 800 quid off the RRP.
Right.
So it kind of made it worth it, and I was like, all right, I'll go. And when I first plugged them in and I sat down, I was just like, oh my God. Like,
what have I been doing? Yeah.
Like, bam. You can just pick stuff out in the stereo field perfectly. Incredible.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that with my Adam A7Xs, that was always the one caveat is the high end was super clear, but the vocals always sat back in the mix. And it turns out that when I did SonarWorks, there's a big hump at 1K to bring that back. It must be the crossover frequency. And suddenly the vocals are at the front again, and I'm like, oh, there you are. Because it used to be that I had to check everything on NS10s and suddenly be like, there's my vocal pinning me to the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, the Type 20s are a really, really, really monitor. And I know I sound like I'm endorsed by Head Audio, and I'm not. I just love their products. I love their monitors. I think for the price, I've not personally heard anything better.
Right. Good to know.
Frequency. I mean, they go right the way down to 32 hertz up to 50k in an almost completely flat response.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
They kick out low end. It's ridiculous. A lot of hip hop guys, R&B guys, dubstep, that sort of thing, EDM producers, they all use them because the low end reproduction is just so ridiculous.
Yes, you can trust your low end. Yeah.
And they can mix without subs, and trust what they're hearing is right. Obviously, my room is a little smaller than would be ideal, but still, with SonarWorks correcting it, I noticed that the translation from system to system just immediately went up. Like, I don't have to reference in the car anymore. Like, I like to because it's part of the process, but I don't have. I'm quite confident that I could send a mix to a client having not played it in the car and be completely fine.
Right, let's crack on with the news, because otherwise we're never going to get through it all. So we're talking about Pro Tools and video integration. Ableton Live now has a thing called EBO Suite, which changes Ableton Live into a fully fledged video workstation.
Wow.
Yeah. So EBO Suite's been made independently, like a third-party thing. So you can load videos into the clip view in Ableton now, like you would with audio, and crossfade them, mash them, trigger different videos all at one go, exactly like, you know, those Cassette Boy videos where it was all like, sampling some famous person saying separate words and mashing them together.
Yeah.
So now you can just do that in Ableton Live and have clips and then literally go trigger, 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 trigger in live.
That's nuts.
Yeah. I think for like VJs, for video guys who want to do a live DJ set but have a screen going, that's going to be a massive game changer for a lot of these guys who do the kind of loop-based music.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's €159, but if someone wants to be like a professional VJ but use the software they're comfortable with, I think that's going to really change that. We're going to see a lot more guys with a projector and a screen live now, I reckon.
Yeah, which is great for, I guess, making the sets more entertaining. It gives them a whole new dimension now.
Yeah. I've been saying for a long time that if I do a DJ set, I should definitely have some sort of visualization go along with it, because otherwise, who am I other than some guy presses buttons?
Yeah, because I mean, the days of vinyl are long gone. Like most people who call themselves DJs these days are actually just mouse J.
But that's it. I mean,
jockey and shit. They're just pressing play.
it's funny that the venue where I do all the live sound, after the band's finished, they always have a DJ on, because otherwise the crowd just leaves. Sometimes they have DJs who come in who are genuine DJs, 2 decks, mixer, doing it properly. Sometimes they've got like a CDJ style mixer and they're actually queuing everything up. I have no issue with that. And then you get the guy who turns up with his MacBook and just clicks another track and hits play and doesn't even check the volume levels or anything. I'm like, you're not a DJ. You're playing a playlist.
You're literally on Spotify playing a playlist. What are you doing?
Yeah, just because you're using Tractor doesn't make you a DJ. Yeah. Oh, this song finished. Play.
Yeah.
And doing a high pass filter at the end of every song doesn't make you a DJ either.
No, it doesn't. It makes you a clown.
Yes, quite. Anyway, personal gripe. Let's move on. Here's something that I'm interested in. Waves. I used to swear by Waves plugins. I'm not so hot on them these days, seeing as I'm now a Slate Digital convert. But they released Multimod, which is a distortion and saturation plugin with 3 plugins in it with like crossovers, so it's like multi-band distortion. And I think this is a really interesting possibility right now. This could make it interesting. It is a bit late, but I'm looking at it going, you know what? I could use this. Like, it's got the Abbey Road Saturator, their new thing called Berserk, which really does mash audio up, and their MDMX Screamer Overdrive, and it's all multi-band. And I'm interested. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking things like bass tone, where I could have the low end have the Abbey Road Saturator, the mids be slightly driven but like blended in with the clean, and then the high end using some other drive. In place of something like Saturn by FabFilter.
I was going to say, is it FabFilter Saturn? Because this looks like it's basically just a shit version of FabFilter Saturn.
Well, maybe, but I do have a soft spot for the Abbey Road stuff from Waves, actually, because I've used quite a lot of the Abbey Road stuff, and it's had some really quite nice results for me. It's a lot less distorty than you would think, the Abbey Road stuff.
Yeah. For bass processing, have you tried Neural's Parallax yet?
I have not.
Demo.
I've been doing it old school for the longest time, where I will actually have like an EQ that shelves out everything below about 1K before a guitar amp sim. So I've been doing the thing that Parallax does for so long that for me it just seemed like almost an inconvenience to have to go back and rebuild my chains up.
I completely feel you, because I was exactly the same way, and then I bought Parallax, and then I used it, and then I stopped. Because it's amazing.
Right.
Parallax is sick. It's like, I put it on just a bass DI, and I was like, wow, that's just cut like potentially 6 or 7 plugins out of the chain that I've got that sound with.
Right.
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. They do like a 14-day trial of it. Heartily urge you to get it and give it a whirl and see what you think.
Yeah, I might give it a crack.
It's a wonderful thing. But then again, there is something to be said for doing it the old way. I do still do it that way on sometimes. I think it really depends for me how low tuning is.
Right.
Because I found that Parallax, it's not that it sounds bad. It doesn't sound bad on anything I've put it on, but it sings particularly nicely on stuff that's like maybe C to A.
Right.
Is cool, but if you go in like 8 string, like drop E, F sharp, you're better off doing it the old school method.
Right.
You just have more soul in the low end.
See, the other thing is I, for a little while, was absolutely in love with the Dark Glass kind of B7K kind of sound, but very quickly that faded for me. My personal preference and what works in part of my mixing style is more of a mid-grunt.
Yeah.
Like, I favour using a guitar amp on the mids because I get that low-mid thing that something like a B7K completely scoops out, which, like I say, for a short while I really liked that sound, but then actually I was like, well, it probably comes from me being a lifelong bass player, that I play really aggressively anyway, and I make that character in the low mids. Like, my ideal bass sound is that modern Geddy Lee thing where it's got that Sansampy kind of mid thing to it. Is the only way I can describe it. Is it's
like a weird kind of gristle sound.
Yeah, not a lot of it, but just enough that when there's a wall of like 5150s going on, you can go, oh, that mid-range thing in the middle, that's the bass player, instead of the bass player being ting, 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 ting at the top.
Yeah. 100%.
Which I don't mind. I really don't mind having clear top end. I quite like having like that 10k thing. But if there's nothing going on mid-range wise, it can be, I don't know, for me it feels like the bass player gets lost and then it becomes a supported instrument, which a lot of genres that Neural tend to cater for, like the whole gent thing. I mean, Nolly Get Good is a well-known bass player. Give me another well-known bass player in gent.
None.
There you go. Because there maybe oh god, Tesseract. What's his name? Come on, brain. This is just a genuine brain fart on my part. But
the fact you're having to think about him means that you don't know his name straight off by heart.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's like, have some character, have some, not enough to muddy a mix up. I'm not talking like 500 hertz overload of a honk, but just enough of a guts in that distortion layer that gives you a certain, oh hello, that guy. Like, for me, one of the best tones personally, and this is personal preference, is Justin Chancellor from Tool. He's got a very distinctive gurgle in that mid-range where you know it's him. But it's not necessarily a wall of fuzz.
No. I think a lot of reason why that gent tone came to be is basically because in the gent genre, most, I would probably say, upwards of 80% of the bass is MIDI.
Yeah.
And so when you have a very distinctive bass tone, it's very distinctively MIDI. So they tend to just bury it and use it as a supporting low-end guitars.
Would you also agree that most gent stuff is written and produced by the guitarist in the band, who makes their tone and then doesn't want it interfered with?
Kind of, yeah. I think what they're basically doing is they're using the bass as the low end of the guitar.
Yeah.
So essentially, they're just writing MIDI parts, which are just the root notes or whatever the guitar's, and that's why they don't want any mids in it, because if you put mids in it, that's where the MIDI side of it really shows through.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. One of my favourite examples of a great mix is something like Sad But True by Metallica. Yeah. Have you ever heard the guitars from the Black Album on their own?
No.
They're disgusting. They're awful. There's no character to it. There's no low end. There's no definition. But the bass soloed is going gung, 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 get it. It's really driving. But it's perfectly in time with the guitars that they come together as a wall. And that low end gurgle on that provides the definition for the guitars. And for me, again, that's what a good mix does. Because then you don't need low gain clarity from the guitars because the bass player is doing that.
Exactly. And I think that's what sets Nolly apart from, well, in the genre, because for one, he can actually play the bass.
Yes.
He's really good at it, whereas most are just MIDI. And when you actually see the band live, the bass player, they're absolute dog shit.
Yes.
Which is like MIDI. So not only is he a very skilled bass player, but that then allows him to have that kind of mid-rangey, almost guitar-like tone for his bass, because you can tell it's being played by a person that's very skilled at bass. So he makes the bass own instrument.
Yes, very much so.
I think a lot of it comes down to skill of player. You know, I've met probably 4 really talented bass players in my lifetime who were like Nolly, like very, very good. The rest of them have been absolutely garbage.
I've always, because I came into production from the bass side, I've always been screaming at people going, change your strings, set up your action, learn how to do chords, be better, harmonics, tone, da!
It's like Joey Sturgis on his page the other day said, what's your biggest pet peeve when recording bass players? And I commented on that and said, my biggest pet peeve with recording bass players is having to write the MIDI after the... Because it's like, oh man, why doesn't anybody practice to a metronome? It's not fucking difficult.
No.
Sit there and play the song to a click until you've got it tight. Just, oh man, everybody wants a shortcut. There is no shortcut to being a skilled musician other than practice and hard work and bleeding fingers.
Yep. Tell you what my shortcut was. 20 years of playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, he's... Man, I just don't think... And things like, you know, Submission Audio, gin bass, that MIDI bass instrument.
Yeah.
Sounds incredible. I mean, hats off to them. It sounds like a real bass. It's incredible. That's not helping anybody. Because it's encouraging them to be lazy. And they're like, well, screw that, I can't play that part. So rather than go home, practice it, come back and record it, they'll just... And that's, I think, partially why the live music scene is not what it once was. Because 9 out of 10 bands are absolutely garbage.
Yes.
They can't play their instruments, the shit, because no one practices. They just go into a studio, they record DIs, they edit them clinically tight, they MIDI the drum, MIDI the bass, the vocalist gets auto-tuned to high heaven, and voila, you've got an album. And then you go and take it on tour, and everyone's got there. You think?
Yeah, funnily enough.
Seen a bass.
Yeah.
Bass is a woefully underappreciated instrument, and it's important.
1 second. Oh my word. My other half is back from the shop and she managed to get hand soap.
Oh my god, where from?
Slightly leaky.
Slightly leaky, it was at the back, but yeah, check that out. Hand soap. Oh my actual god. I'm impressed. Well done.
And I got the last box of eggs.
Last box of eggs as well. I salute you.
No flour.
How are you going to toilet roll though? Have you managed to pick some up?
Oh, toilet roll. Thing is, because we've got a 2-year-old, we already had a load of toilet roll. As it is now, we just stick her under the shower head and scrub her instead of using toilet roll.
Yeah. In the bedding, to be honest. It is what it is.
Yeah. Oh no, I shit the bed. Oh well, don't have to use toilet roll.
Commodity these days. Now, speaking of which, a friend of ours phoned us the other day and said, I'm on my way over to yours house. Do you want me to pick anything up on the way? And I was like, oh, actually, yeah, get a couple of bog rolls while you're at it. Like, because we're not exactly low, but we will be if we don't get some. Sure.
Yeah.
So he picks up some toilet rolls, right? Someone actually tried to mug him for the toilet roll.
Really?
I'm not joking.
Jesus.
A woman came up behind him and grabbed the toilet roll out of his hand and packaging open, and it was all over the street.
Wow.
So he turned up like 18 toilet rolls in a Tesco bag. Where's the packaging? He was like, don't. I've literally just been turned over for toilet roll.
Wow. Some people out there are just completely shameless. I mean, was this in Bury?
It was in Bury.
Yeah, that says most of it. Was it from Tesco in Bury? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. From Tesco. Yeah. But
Jesus.
I mean, to be fair, the general population in Bury, there's probably only 3 people full-time job. So it's the only place I've ever lived where the town centre is just as busy on a Tuesday afternoon as today.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, that town.
Yeah, it wasn't my choice to live here, it just happened.
It's funny, that's why I'm living near Blackburn, is not my choice. Yeah, long story. Moving on with the news, my friends in Arturia have the V collection, which I'm doing a video on right now, actually, which is all their synths, all their like Mellotrons and Moogs and CS80s and stuff, and it's on 50% off sale.
Nice.
Which is amazing. So it's $249 for new customers, which sounds like a lot, but this is a lot of instruments. It's like all the vintage stuff you could possibly need, and some really super modern synth. Oh, excuse me, stuff as well. That was completely unexpected. That was terrible. I'm sorry, that was shocking. I wish I'd get more warning. Oh Jesus, hideously impolite on the stream. Sorry to anybody listening on the iTunes podcast. That was completely out of the blue. Let's bring this up. Have you ever used anything by Arturia?
Well, software-wise, do they make key labs?
Do they make what? Sorry.
Key labs.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, that.
Right. It's funny. I came into Arturia the other way. Yeah. So they make Analog Lab, which comes with the key lab stuff.
About Analog Labs, yeah.
Yeah. So the Analog Lab's like the streamlined, like bass synths, guitar synths, whatever synths, vintage synths, go 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 go. But they also do all the separate synths. Like they've got a Hammond organ in here that sounds really realistic. The Synclavier, which is the like semi-computer sample-based thing from the 80s, if you want to basically make Sledgehammer. There's Rhodes Oberheim Matrix, if you want to sound like Rush from the early 80s, which makes me absolutely happy. There's an ARP Selena, come up and see me, make me smile. What's his name? Steve Harley and the Rebels. That awful string synth in the background, that's an ARP Selena. So there's that. There's all sorts of stuff, and they all just sound like the real thing. There's a Prophet, the Dave Smith Instruments Prophet. That's in there. Oh my god, there's so much vintage stuff. There's a Moog modular that actually, like, every patch does exactly what it's supposed to. And I used their Moog modular back in about 2005 and played with it until the sun went down and then came up again. And was like, yes. But being a uni student at the time, the university had all the licenses for what was then basically the only thing that Arturia made. They made that and a Mini Moog at the time. And I just played with them for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Basically got me through my second year of uni, because I was just making weird patches and then being like, this is additive synthesis. And they're like, A grade, tick.
This is an impressive collection.
Yeah, the Yamaha CS80, the Mr. Crowley by Ozzy sound.
Wow.
Yeah, the ARP 2600, which is all the early stuff, like Birdland by Weather Report and all that weird jazz stuff, all ARP. The Roland Jupiter 8, which is basically Duran Duran in a keyboard. The Clavinet, which is Superstition. The CMI Fairlight, which again is Sledgehammer and everything. DX7, I keep meaning to compare the Arturia DX7. I've got a Mark 1 DX7 in the studio. I keep meaning to compare them and see just how realistic it is.
Oh, nice.
But that's basically the sound of the 80s right there. All your horrible pretend pianos and that kind of stuff. That's that.
Yeah, and of course the classic mellow.
Yep, Court of the Crimson King, all that kind of prog stuff. You've got your Mellotron. Love a good Mellotron. I try and put Mellotrons in everything. I consider it a personal challenge. If a song's not got a Mellotron in, I'm not done.
At least somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, there's usually a Mellotron choir somewhere buried underneath a chorus. And everyone's like, oh, you made the chorus sound so big. And I'm like, yeah, It's the Mellotron.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, how about that? There's everything in there. Yeah, mini Moog, piano. Yeah, and that's just a sample of what's in there. And so if you've got some spare money, even in this tight situation right now, if you were planning on buying this, €249, get it. Get it now while it's cheap. Because that's actually cheaper than the Black Friday sale that they had.
Yeah, that's absolutely a solid deal.
Yeah, there's nearly 3 weeks on it, so yeah. Apparently it's monthly installments from $25 a month as well. So they know that people don't have upfront cash right now because of situation. Arturia are a French company, so I'm guessing that they're just trying to get money in any way they can. Because I know that France was one of the first countries to be in proper lockdown.
Yeah. So, yeah, sales from this are probably going to help their staff with homework, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I mean, there's sounds for every genre in here as well. It's absolutely insane. And because it's not just like samples from each instrument, it's completely tweakable. Every knob, they genuinely work like they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's an absolutely incredible piece of kit.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, there's things like the CS80 has got loads. Oh, I can hear myself again. Is that on some weird foldback? I don't know. So the CS80, there's like you click a button and it pulls up another 2 rows of settings that weren't on the original CS80. But they're like, you want to change stuff? Here, change stuff. It's absolutely.
Heart is content.
Yes. Oh god, you can mess about with virtual synths until you go cross-eyed and then mess around a little more. It's amazing. In fact,
just so many options on the market as well.
Yeah, well that's the thing. I mean, in terms of actual recreations of vintage synths, I don't think Arturia can be beaten. I mean, yes, there's like the Native Instruments Complete in the contact libraries and that kind of stuff, and they sound great, they do. But you don't have this customization, you don't have the tweakability. And yeah, for the number of synths you get in this, if you can afford to even do this on like a payment plan, yeah, I've got a few months left on NSR, NFR, not for resale key, because I'm doing a video for Arturia on this. They're not paying me. But I basically ranted and raved at them enthusiastically until they said, fine, have a key, go, do it. Because yeah, go on.
That's not a bad to have.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. Like the Jupiter, the Jupiter 8 it's one of those sound bank libraries where a lot of modern metal, if you've got synths going on, the Jupiter 8 is a beautiful synth to have. Oh, apparently you're not very loud. Any way to turn up your mic on your end?
Yes.
Yeah, somebody says 2.5 hours in. This is what we're saying about live broadcasts. Thank you to the Chief for your user feedback.
Let's have a look. Oh, okay. How about now?
Hard to tell.
Because the input volume is full.
That is what it is. It's quite possible that my volume is just too high. There we go. I'll take myself down. Everybody turn your speakers up a little bit. Because I've got, through OBS, I've got a noise gate, a gain push, and then a limiter on my mic.
Ah, okay.
Generally because when Liam calls in, his headset absolutely booms like the voice of God. And so to bring mine up to match, I've had to do all that.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing because you're on what microphone you've got? Yeah.
I'm currently on just a MacBook.
Yes. Right, so let's move on from the Arturia thing. But yes, it's cheap. Go get it. 9 ways to be a productive electronic producer in self-isolation. So, number 1, create some truly uninspired music. Number 2, collaborate with weirdos online. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to... Number 3, finally learn something about music theory.
That's
Yes. Yes. Number 4, synthesize the perfect snare drum. That can never be done.
Impossible.
Yep. Spend your mountain of accrued Splice credits. Never used Splice. Possibly never will. Never say never. I've worked with songwriters who've used Splice.
For me, it was when I saw that advert with Travis Barker.
Mm.
I was like, well, that's bullshit. There's no fucking way he uses that.
Well, yeah, being a drummer, it's like, dude, if anyone doesn't use this, it's you.
Yeah, and I mean, given the fact he probably has a multi-million-dollar studio on times.
Yeah. And the fact that he never, like, flies anywhere because of what happened to him with that horrible plane crash. It's like, when do you have time to do any of this? You pay somebody else for this, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I'd imagine he probably does.
Yeah. Number 6, clean your equipment. Yeah, right. Although, to be fair, I was doing that before this self-isolation thing. I basically went to my studio and sat and got high for a day. Not intentionally. I had 4 solid-state power amps and a tube power amp that needed cleaning and 3 cans of contact cleaner. By the time I'd finished, I was floating. But everything was nice and clean.
I'm due a spring clean myself, actually.
I tell you what, WD-40's cans of contact cleaner. They're big, they're cheap, they're good.
I'll bear that in mind, because at the moment, layer of dust on some of the equipment in my studio, I am not ashamed to it. I'm pretty sure I would need to re-measure the room with SonarWorks because it's actually affecting the frequency.
Wow.
So it's in the hard to reach places.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then just let it affect the sound. You know, it's probably controlling the audio a bit better.
That's what I mean. I think once a year, I generally tear everything down out of the room, paint it a different colour to freshen it up, clean everything religiously, and put it back in and leave it for another year. Yeah,
roughly every 3 months I get a session where the talent who's coming in is some nice female, so I clean.
Best foot forward.
Yeah, well that's it. I mean, if it's a bunch of blokes coming in, then it's like, don't mind the mess, and they're like, what mess? And start dropping crisp packets everywhere. So, yeah, you know, different standards for different clients. Number 7, look back over your old projects. Funnily enough, that's something I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, so that works for me. Recently, I've been doing a lot of remote mixing for stuff for clients that's kind of under NDA until it's released. And I've been doing a lot of stuff for the YouTube, so I've not had many new clients in whose material I can play with on stream. However, I've got some really good material that I recorded back in like 2011, 2012, back when I didn't have the really nice equipment that I've got now, but I had really good DI recordings, really clean vocal recordings. I actually played drum MIDI. So I'm going to be going back and doing mix tutorials with stuff where it's like, here's how I would have done this, here's how I got it to sound with about 7 EQs in a row, and here's how it sounds with an actually good amp and just 1 EQ.
Yeah, here's how it should sound.
Yeah. To be fair, there's some albums that I released that on reflection I'm actually quite happy with, but I remember the amount of work that went into it. And I'll be like, here's how we get something that's equivalent in a 4-hour live session rather than over 3 weeks of stress.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's an EP that I did years and years ago with a friend of mine. That recent, first time in a while, and I was disgusted by it. I was like, this sounds... But I don't have the sessions anymore to go back.
Ah.
Damn.
I've always made a point of trying to keep hold of old projects. You know.
Yeah, I have an archive drive. I keep everything in. This was one of them from way back in the day, and it's just kind of dissolved over time.
I have at least 2 copies of everything, and my archives go back 12 years. So, yeah, I've got about 8 hard drives. But then I've been running it with film and ADR and as a going concern for that long. So, you know, I've had to keep backups because if a client calls you 2 years down the line with a £2,000 job that's basically, can you just take this old thing and just edit it a bit? You're like, yep, okay. That keeps the lights on for a while.
Absolutely, yeah. Got to do what you can, you know.
Absolutely. Number 8, prepare for a civilization-free future. I mean, I've worked in Bury. We've had a civilization-free future for a while now.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of primitive and Neanderthal individuals in these parts.
Yeah, it's amazing that some of these towns still carry on the way they do.
There's one particular guy, a, shall we say, well-known teachers in this area, and that, I swear to he must have, like, the IQ.
Sorry, you keep cutting out there. Oliver, what was that?
I was just saying there's a guy in Bury who works in a local butcher's.
Oh.
Quite well known, but the guy has the IQ of a bowl of soup.
Bowl of soup?
Yeah, I don't know how he manages to breathe. Hang on a sec. What?
It's a ladybird.
Oh, another one. We seem to have an issue this evening. Ladybirds in the house.
Oh.
And God knows where they've come from. I'm sure it's not their time of year yet.
Bizarre. As long as they don't start sneezing on you, then I think you're okay.
Yeah, well, we need to make sure they're not.
They're not the vector. Right, last but not least, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience and then go, because we're bordering on a 3-hour stream now.
Jesus, has it been that long? I'm sorry, I told you that I could talk.
Yeah, well, it's been 2.5 hours and we're still okay. I mean, because I'm not doing much work, I don't need my voice too much now, which is nice. So, Apple's new iPad Pro, which they're going to be announcing, because, hey, Apple guy, this is your topic. Apparently, it's going to be more powerful than most Windows PC laptops, which isn't difficult because most Windows laptops are garbage. And that's from a Windows guy. Just statistically, percentage-wise, most Windows laptops are terrible. They can barely run Microsoft bloody Word.
Do you know what? I'm pretty fond of the Dell XPS series. Aside from the actual hardware is garbage. Like, not in terms of processor. Like, they have the 15-inch one has a problem snapping. So when you open it, it just basically snaps in half.
Ah.
And the last company I worked for solely Dell XPS machines, and I had a pile, probably 11 of them with exactly the same, all snapped on the hinge.
Oh, wow.
And
Awesome.
if you think about the price point they're coming in at, who in hell makes them that weak? It's just a design flaw.
Well, Dell and cutting corners for profit? Never.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah. I mean, the target market would never stand for this. Maybe never notice. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, apparently there's going to be a new iPad range coming out on the 24th of March. And the queues for the iPad at the Apple Store are going to be absolutely zero because they're either not open or you've got to stay 2 meters from the next person. But yeah, apparently it's a new 8-core A12Z chip. My iPad Pro is the first iPad Pro and it's got a quad-core A10 chip. And running Aria Pro on that, I've recorded like 20-odd track audio using a proper interface with all the mixing. And do you know the audio company PSP?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's stuff like they've got a channel strip and vintage warmer and all that kind of stuff in Aria Pro. Using it all on every channel mustn't have hit 50% on that iPad Pro in terms of CPU usage. Yeah.
That's actually impressive.
Yeah, it is, but that's the iPad Pro from 4 or 5 years ago. It was the first iPad Pro. So they're like, oh, this is going to be more powerful than most laptops, and it's like, all right, well, what are we going to do with it that we couldn't already do?
Well, my question is, I'm not super familiar with the iPad. Does this still use the iPad OS like a
Yes.
regular iPad?
Yes, it
Right.
does. So
These 8 cores of pointless shit.
yeah, pretty much. That's it. Like, it's... I mean, to be fair, it's quite nice having a quad core in mine because I do genuinely use mine. I've used mine on film sets where I'll have the script up on one side and actually have like a rough outline video on the other, but I'm probably the minority.
Yeah, I mean, basically buying an 8-core iPad. The iPad OS is the letdown. If this thing ran Mac OS, that would be a whole different story because it'd be more like a Surface Book, which would be actually useful.
Well, yeah. Thing is, I mean, apart from a few key programs, there's not that much difference. I mean, I genuinely like ARM-based hardware, which all the iPads, Raspberry Pis, iPhones, Android, it's all ARM-based stuff. It's incredibly power efficient, and it's really quite powerful. And if you can program for it properly, it's really quite powerful stuff. Where it falls down is that some of the major software engineers just haven't written for it yet. Did you know that there's a full version of Photoshop now for iPad?
No?
Yeah. So apparently, yeah, not like Photoshop Express, but full Photoshop is available on iPad and iPad Pro and that kind of stuff now. Now that I can see the difference between quad core and 8-core being important. If you've got like a 1 gigabyte file that's like an A2 poster that you're working on.
Yeah, that could be handy actually.
Yeah, I mean,
So fair, it has more use cases than
but it's a case of the software developers catching up. Like,
yeah.
You didn't even know about Photoshop. I didn't know about Photoshop being a full thing until very recently, and I've been a user of the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite now since its release.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using Adobe Creative Cloud for probably the best part of, I want to say 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It's not like they're saying, hey guys, by the way.
Yeah, they should be shouting about it louder. I mean, to be fair, in the latest version of Photoshop, it does come up on like the home screen when you open it up, but you just close it and go into the file that you were working on. You don't really look at it.
Yeah, I'd have thought they'd have done some like big ad campaign about something like that because it's pretty special. But
yeah, it's a big deal.
But fair enough. It won't be long before you've got like Logic and Pro Tools and stuff like that being available.
That's
I
it.
know Avid have been dipping into that game recently, so they've got like a Avid Control app you can get. I did dick around with that for a few minutes, and I thought that's a nice gimmick. It's not super useful, but
no, I mean,
use case. If you're controlling a icon console in a live venue and you want to, know what the stage mix is like, well, just go and stand on the stage and use your icon.
Yeah, but then you can do that with a Behringer X32.
Yeah, but then you've got the shame of knowing that you're using Behringer.
Well, you could lie to yourself and call it a Midas.
Just put a Midas sticker on the top.
To be fair, I mean, that's the weird thing about when Behringer bought Midas. That it's now like they have the technology from Midas. And they're like, well, how can we make shortcuts now? It's like,
It's like, how can we take this beautiful Midas preamp and make it absolutely garbage?
Well, yeah. But that's the thing. If you take one of their Midas consoles and you use an external wireless router, an external preamps, an external digital snake, an external everything, it's actually really good.
If you basically use it as a massive patch bay.
Pretty much.
It's perfect, yeah. I don't know, man.
To be fair, they actually know. I mean, they've not said it outspokenly, but the new Behringer Wing, which is their new flagship mixer, only has 8 inputs. 8 analog inputs, anyway. And then it's got expansion capability. So it's like they've not said it, but they're like, yeah, we know. Just add inputs of your own. We'll deal with the rest.
And I suppose hats off to them for being honest about the fact that at least they know the stuff's dog shit. And they're just kind of working with what they've got. I mean, it's like, well, if you've not got a lot of dough, then we can get you a fully fledged mixing for the best part of $5.99.
Well, it's the same with their new synth stuff. Have you seen all the new synths?
No.
Like, they've got a Behringer Mini Moog Model D for about 400 quid. They've got a Polyphonic Mini Moog for something like 600 quid. They've got a 303 bass synth, an 808, and a 909, I think. They've got all sorts of stuff, and people are complaining, and they've literally just turned around and gone, what? It's cheap. Deal with it.
Yeah, but you see, therein lies the problem, right? So they're making all these mini Moogs and blah, 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 and they're all absolutely shit. And for the price, you could just buy that Arturia software.
Well, there you go, yeah.
And just throw all your Behringer stuff in the bin. Like, honestly, this is what I was saying earlier. I don't understand why they're a brand. They're awful. Everything they make has got this touch of, like, shit on it. Like, this could be a great product, but we manufactured it in Taiwan, and it's awful. Like, there you go. We paid 0.08 cents per capacitor, and they've got terrible noise problems. But, it's only 50 quid, so cool.
And that's this week's Behringer Corner. Dun, 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 dun. So, moving on. Right, that's the end of the news for this week. So let's quickly field a couple of questions from the chat, and then we will call it a day because we're coming up on the 3-hour mark. Jeez. Okay, so one that's probably specifically for me, which was one of the guys in chat started using Reaper a few weeks ago. How do I punch record MIDI without erasing previous takes? So, on your track, there is the record arm button, which comes up red. If you right-click on that, there is an option for record input MIDI, and in that sub-menu is record MIDI overdub, which changes the record mode so that it adds MIDI notes in without making a new take, and still plays back the original MIDI note. Very good for having 3 or 4 handed piano lines without having to have several tracks.
100%. And for those of you wondering about Pro Tools, yep, that's absolutely. Just MIDI.
Yeah, it's useful to have a functionality like that. And so yes, it's not an obvious one. It's hidden in a record option somewhere. But yeah, that's how you do that. Okay, so next one from one of my regulars, MarTV. The Golden Grail question. A lot of people want to jam together online, can't find a solution with all the lag issues. Suggestions. Now, I don't know if you know a suggestion, but I've got one. It's a thing called Ninjam. If you've heard of Ninjam.
I have not.
Okay, Ninjam, and there is a plugin in Reaper for Ninjam. Ninjam it's kind of based on a per bar situation. So it's kind of like looping, and it's an online collaboration thing. So let's say the way it works is you make a 4-bar drum loop. I don't know, you're doing it live or whatever. And then a set number of bars later, it's the next person's turn to add something in. So it's synchronized per bar, which means that latency can then be compensated for.
Okay.
And then the next person can add theirs in, and there is latency, but because it's synchronized per beat or per bar, that can just be taken into consideration. And then you can add and collaborate, and you can do it, and it sends the audio over, and because the latency is factored in there, you can get your full quality audio. There is literally no way to have real-time interaction over the internet, full stop, because of latency.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to be possible.
No, because of at the moment at least, we're probably 10 or 20 years away from that being a thing, because as soon as you cross the Atlantic, or if you cross Europe, or if you cross to anywhere that's not within the same country, you're going to incur several milliseconds of what they call ping. latency, which is literally the time it takes for your signal to get through all the carriers and through all the redirections to whoever you're talking to. That's why there's a tiny bit of latency between me and Oliver here, because we're on separate sides of the continent. I'm in Darwin, he's in Bury, which is, as far as anyone's concerned in the UK, a gulf. It's not, but I'm sure it's different internet providers. Are you using something like Virgin by any chance?
I am using Virgin.
Yeah, and I'm not, so it could be something to do with that. That's another factor to factor in, which is why zero latency is very, very, very difficult over general internet. Yeah, so that is one way that I know of. So check out Ninjam. Spell it like ninja with an M on the end. Yes, it's very clever. So there's another guy. Been experimenting with Reaper, Logic user, struggling to get an easy MIDI workflow. Wondering if I address this on my channel. I mean, what do you mean by easy MIDI workflow? I mean, that's the question. What works for you? What is it not doing that you need? Those are the questions you need to be asking yourself. Because for me, the MIDI workflow in Reaper is very quick. I literally go, MIDI, monitoring in, yes please, load up plugin, play. Because of the music that I work with, which isn't heavily loop-based, it's not like electronic dance music, I'm not then confined. I literally just hit record a couple of bars before I need to come in, I play, and even if I play badly, I then go back and just correct it using the MIDI editor, because my first instrument was piano, but I'm not the best because I didn't spend a long time on it. So, yeah. Yes. Well, it looks like I'm suddenly getting a flood of Reaper questions. Wow.
I'm reading them in the bottom corner. There's a lot of the questions.
Yeah, it's funny that they've waited nearly 3 hours for this. Since the latest updates on Reaper, I lost several VSTs, can't install them or run them. Things like Lapoo or Cathalan Cab, experienced things like it. No, I haven't experienced anything like this, actually. But it could be anything. Try going into the preferences VST options and clear cache and rescan. Because if you clear cache, if Reaper scans all your plugins and it finds any problem for any reason with a plugin, it gets blacklisted. Which can be a good thing if you've had a problem with something. It means that Reaper can actually open. But if now you know that things are working well, you can hit clear cache and rescan. It could be also that your VST settings aren't set to look in the right folders. In the options preferences VST, you can add multiple folders in there where you expect your DLL files to be, which is your plugin's main file that Reaper's supposed to find. It's the same with Cubase, it's the same with Studio One, any VSTs, that's how they work. That's the same on Mac, that's the same on PC. So yeah, find those folders, rescan, clear cache, rescan, try that. Is mixing and mastering achievable on Reaper using stock plugins? Yes. Is it going to sound good? Depends on your target. That could be said for any DAW, would you agree?
Absolutely. I think, if I'm going to just be straight up and brutally honest, people like to rely on plugins as a magic sauce that's going to fix all the problems, but you can't fix having a shitty ear.
Yeah.
You need to focus on, things like fundamental frequencies and the relationship between frequencies of different instruments. And then, frankly, yes, you can mix with anything. If you know how to mix with anything, it's nice to have a FabFilter Pro Q or an S channel, any number of things that add vibe and flavor. But can you mix a song with stock plugins? Absolutely.
Yes, I completely agree. And it's funny that sometimes in mixing, because I like flavor and I like character, I've been using more and more and more plugins, but that's personal choice. I can use less if I want, whereas with mastering, I've been using less and less and less and less recently, because my mixes have improved and improved and improved to the point where mastering is not much of a thing.
Yeah, it becomes almost part of your chain, doesn't it? So when you actually time to master, you're pretty much just level matching.
Pretty much. It's like the old maxim of record like there is no mixing, mix like there is no master holds so true over time.
Absolutely does.
Yeah. I mean, I've learnt more and more and more that it's like, I used to record really, really bright guitar sounds and then spend ages trying to fatten the low end up and all that kind of thing. And now I've realised that I just either move the mics across a little bit or turn the treble on the amp down a little bit, and suddenly everything just fits.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a thing to be said for, there are certain types of plugin where they impart a particular sound that you just can't really do with stock stuff.
Yeah.
But that is analog emulation stuff. So again, if you go back to the old days when they actually had Neve 1073s in the studio recording, they'd have already had that. So again, even in the 80s, were they mixing with stock stuff? Yeah, of course they were. Because they recorded with the gear that we're trying to emulate. So obviously in the box you're going to have a lot more plugins anyway, because you're basically trying to emulate in software what has already been done in hardware. Without spending $1 million. But
that's it. You get people saying, oh, well, they didn't use plugins. It's like, yeah, they spent more on a mortgage for the mixing desk than they spent on their house.
Well, here's a little factoid on that very tip. So, you know Chris Lord-Alge?
Yes.
His studio is called Mix LA. And I read in an article somewhere that his insurance policy on that studio is $11 million. That's how much gear he's got in there.
Jesus effing Christ.
11 mil. He's got something like 9 or 10 vintage original 1176.
And I bet they're all noisy as hell.
Oh, horrible. Yeah, but they're worth like 200 grand a pop.
Yeah,
like they're not even the Universal Audio ones, they're the original
Yuri, yeah.
back in the day. Like, they're going to sound like absolute shit, but you just would never get rid of them because they've got this certain character.
Yeah, the capacitors have been made with Bill Putnam's spit.
Worth every cent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jesus.
Man. Yeah, 11 mil. So, yeah, if you want to mix with less plugins, spend $11 million, mix with no plugins.
It's funny, someone in chat's just said my noise floor's a lot better now. That's because behind me in this cupboard is the central heating boiler, and if we went on for an hour for the stream, when we cut, that kicks in. So for the last couple of hours, I've had the central heating boiler behind me. So one last question, and it brings us back to something we were saying before. Back to Behringer. Bought the Euphoria UMC 404 as his first interface ever. Quite confident. What about other hardware in terms of building a home studio? Thoughts? How many channels do you need? That's your first question.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Let me just reach over here. This is an Audient ID 4. They're less than £100 or dollars. You can get an Audient Evo 4 for about the same price now, if not a little more, which has 2 really good channels on it. If you don't need more than 2, spend all your money, in my opinion, on get something like Reaper or Logic or whatever works for you. Whatever instrument you play, get the best playing version that you can for a reasonable amount of money without being silly. If you've not got a really good amp and you play guitar, get a really good amp sim or a good guitar, then spend the rest of your money on room treatment if you're going to use microphones or speakers, which you probably are, and spend some decent money on good speakers. Forget the rest of the software. Learn the software before you spend more money.
That, and also, if budget allows, I would certainly consider something from Universal Audio.
Interesting.
Their plugins are insanely good.
You don't mean UA as in Universal Audio Digital, do you?
As in UA Apollos.
Which is UAD, it's the UA Digital stuff.
UAD. Yeah.
I'm on the other side of the fence with those guys.
Oh yeah, I swear by UA stuff. I love it.
Their stuff sounds good. It does. I am anti-proprietary hardware.
Yeah, to be fair, I was in exactly the same boat until I used them Unison mic preamps.
But it's just a flat mic pre and a model.
It's basically the Slate ML1 in your interface, essentially.
But it's not native, which means that if I'm out the studio, I'm screwed.
Yes. But when are you ever out of the studio? Like,
I'm out of the studio all the time.
So I respond to that, sir, with a UA twin because it's travel. You just take it with you.
Yeah, no. I want to be able to load my stuff up on any machine.
Well, technically you can if it's got Thunderbolt.
Yeah, none of my machines have Thunderbolt, and I don't want to be carrying around extra hardware.
Fair, but for those of you that don't sit on that side of the fence, check UA stuff because they're dope. I love them.
Like I say, the sound on them is not the thing that I have the issue with. They do sound great.
Yeah, they're handy if you're going to use them in that way. They're handy to have. And another great brand I think worth checking out is Apogee as well.
But for home recording, I think that's getting out of most people's budget then.
Yeah.
I've been lusting after Apogee for 10 years and haven't pulled the trigger because of cost.
Yeah, they're silly money. Yeah, ignore me.
I mean, you're not wrong, but it's target audience that I've got to try and factor into the answer. If it was dream recording, then I'd have a bank of RME converters and a bank of Neve preamps.
Do you know you couldn't go amiss looking at some of the Focusrite stuff. Some of their Scarlett interfaces are pretty good. Some of the mid-range ones aren't bad.
Maybe actually the Generation 3 stuff isn't that bad actually. But don't go used for an old Generation 1 because they are awful.
Absolutely. 100% avoid the Generation 1. They are woeful. But the newer ones, they take a really, really clean DI. So if you're going to be using amps, etc., the DI on them's particularly crisp. It's quite nice.
Good to know.
So, you know Glenn Fricker?
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, he did a shootout video with a bunch of different like DIs, and he used like the Countryman, Type 89, Type 85, a Radial, loads of these really expensive DIs, and a double blind shootout.
Right.
He preferred the sound of the Scarlett.
Interesting. Pro tip. I don't have my bag with me, but pro tip if you're UK based. I found a new manufacturer that make DIs in the UK that are really, really good. The guys from Sound on Sound swear by a company called Orchid Electronics. Orchid Electronics make these really good DI boxes that don't need a ground lift, completely Class A, don't need a pad because they'll take headroom for days, arguably sound better and measure better than a Radial J48.
Wow.
About 25 quid each.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Orchid Electronics. Check them out.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I got 2 of their micro DIs. I've got them in my bag now downstairs. They're tiny. They do a slightly bigger version that you can stick a 9-volt in, and I went with the ones that are smaller that don't need a 9-volt because I've never put a 9-volt in a DI box in 20 years.
No, I haven't.
And yeah, it just so happened that we were complaining about DJs before, and the DJ for this particular night, he's one of those who absolutely rams his volume. So I was having to pad down DI boxes and all that kind of stuff. So I just used 2 of these Orchid Electronic ones underneath his little DJ booth. It was the best sound I've ever had out of a DJ setup with no EQ on the desk. And there's something to it. And I was just like, how? What? Okay, great.
Yeah,
so,
there's something to be said for picking the right series of components that go into these small units.
Yeah.
And I think if you get it right, you can get something super high quality that doesn't necessarily have to cost you.
Well, that's it. So yeah, Orchid Electronics. I'll put a link down in the description.
I I would be clicking that bad boy.
It's one of those where their website looks like it's from 1996. Because that's not where the money goes. If you get what I mean, yeah, £28, sorry, for a micro DI box.
Wow.
Or they've got like for 60 quid, I think it is, yeah, £64, they do a muting DI box. So it's got a mute switch on it, so if you want to use it on stage for like acoustic guitar and actually turn it off in between, you can do that.
If they really do sound as good as we think,
Mm.
that price point feels literally like
Robbery, yes, absolutely. That's it. As soon as I heard about it, I literally emailed the guy from Orchid and was like, where can I buy these? And he sent me a link and I just was like, I'll have to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I do have some DI boxes coming from Latvia from a company called Simpleway, and apparently they're really good, but they're something like £200 each. And I'll be interested to hear the difference.
Yeah, indeed. Because if Glenn's video taught us anything, it's the fact that a lot of these companies talk a lot of hot bullshit. It's actually in these DIs, because if you look at like the radio, which is super expensive, beaten out by a Focusrite Scarlett, which is like a quarter of the price and is an entire interface. Double blind tests don't lie.
No, but then there's stuff that a radial will do that a Focusrite won't do, sound quality aside, like be kicked through a football field and still carry on. Proper ground lifting and, you know, like proper padding so that if someone's got super loud sources, so on.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, for guys who are in like studio situations who are basically just using for keyboard, guitars, and your interface, etc.
Yeah, if your gear's going to be looked after, yeah.
Yeah, why on earth would you drop that sort of dough when you can buy one off Orchid that's like a quarter of the price and sounds better?
Exactly.
Hell yeah, sign me up with them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny that I was reading up on different DI boxes and it just got mentioned in a Sound on Sound article where it had been measured by those guys that it was flawless, and I'm looking at it going, how about that? I wonder if these guys are still going, because it was quite an old article, but it was comparing a J48, which hasn't changed. And then I saw the prices and was like, ding, 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 winner. Oh, there we go. Bring it up there. Sorry about deafening everybody. But yeah, you can see that the website looks like something from the mid.
It looks like the original version of eBay.
It's Web 1.0 is what this is.
Wow.
But like, he does a proper active 8-way microphone splitter for £225.
Wow.
Which for live sound guys, they're a godsend. One of my friends, a guy called Nikos Pavlou, and he does a lot of tours, and they take all the sound, because he'll basically do a live rig for a support band where he'll do all the monitors, but he'll take mic splitters for every channel and send them out to front of house.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, quality matters in a mic splitter, because if that reduces the quality, then everybody hears crap. Because it's literally every channel being doubled up.
Yeah, wow. I'm going to check them out. That's really something.
Yeah, I've seen a few companies like this where they're far more interested. There's the micro DI box. I mean, that's the size of the XLR. That's how small this box is. They fit in the palm of my hand. Where they're really much more interested in making things work well and sound good than having a flashy website. And I do kind of feel like reaching out to them and being like, guys, I'll make you a good website for nothing.
I mean, just go on Squarespace, man. It'll do it for you.
Yeah. Well, that's it. But, yeah.
Well, do you know what? It does the job, though. And like you say, no one really gives a shit, because once you've been on the website and clicked buy it now and then you wait, you don't really go on the website again. You don't. It's functional and it's simple.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's it. I mean, it's not as if they're doing some sort of like VR tour or anything. It's like, we've got a DI box. It's good. Buy it. Yes, please. Right, so there's the Sound on Sound article. And it is 8 years old? Yeah, May 2012 edition. But things haven't changed in the DI world, and they're still on sale and they're still affordable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the fact that they've not, like, bumped prices up massively just because they've been in Sound on Sound.
Yeah. The one thing that did make me a little sad is the reason I found them is I was looking for a new reamp box. I've got
Yeah.
one of the radial reamp boxes, and it does a nice thing. Why would that be 404 not found? One of our viewers is getting a 404 on the website. Let's give them the index file. And unfortunately, they're not making those right now. They've not got any plans to make another run of the reamp box, because I was looking for something that was higher output than what I've got. But it turns out I've just got myself a new Arturia. They're called the Audio Fuse 8 Pre. It's 8 preamps and 8 outputs, but it's also, you can press a button and it becomes like a USB interface.
Oh, wow.
It's a really good USB interface. Like, the inputs are all super hot, but it turns out the outputs are all super hot and really low noise as well. And that's the thing, is that it turns out I'd been using outputs on my other hardware that weren't particularly high output. So with a passive reamp box, it wasn't driving the amp very hard. And so I was having to get a boost pedal in between the reamp and the amp. And that was bringing the noise floor up by nearly 20 dB, which can be an issue with high gain amps. And then it turns out the Arturia unit's so bloody loud that I tried it with my 5150 on Wednesday, and I was just there grinning, going, "Boys, we got a hit."
The sound of it.
Yeah, I was literally there just smiling ear to ear, going, "It does it. It does it. It does it. Great, done."
Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
But yeah, Glenn was supposed to be coming to the UK for a visit very soon. I've got Glenn's number, and I was hoping to do something with him at my studio when he comes over. Hoping. Nothing confirmed. And now this whole travel thing may have screwed it for a few months. But I'll keep bugging him and see if I can get Mr. Glenn Fricker on the channel, because that would be incredible.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Get every engineer I know within 200 miles to all turn up, and I start asking him questions.
Yeah, he's just one of them guys, isn't he? He's just Glenn. Well, everyone just knows him. He's just Glenn Fricker.
The funny thing is, when I met him in person, he's not really like the camera as well. He's so nice, so chilled out. Typically Canadian.
Yeah, I can imagine, actually, to be honest. He looks like one of them kind of dudes where he's just, like, very fatherly. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, come here, son. Everything's fine. Thanks, him.
But yeah, you get him going, and boy, can he go. But yeah, that's what I was looking at, the amp interface. 56 quid for an active reamp box.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's it. Unfortunately, they've got no plans to make a run at the moment. But if they ever do, I'll be like, "Hey, guys. Hello? Guys?"
Just message them and say, "Listen, if you're not going to make one of these, can you just send me the schematic and just make mine?"
Oh, my soldering skills are on par with my 2-year-old daughter's soldering skills. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but I'm not that guy. And also, even if I was, I do not have the time. I would dearly love to have projects where I just fettle and solder and mess. But when?
Well,
I've accepted my fate at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, the reason that I got onto this was because of Glenn, actually. Because Glenn's got a friend who's making reampers for him. Let's see. Reamp box. Glenn Fricker reamp box. See who. Signal Art Electronics. There we go. So this is a really high output reamp box that does something like plus 10 dB above what it's given, which will hit an amp pretty hard. $225 plus shipping.
That's not bad.
It's not bad, but compared to £56 for this handmade one in the same country I'm in, I was like, you know what? Hello, dear Orchid Electronics people.
Maybe what we need to do is get a campaign together. We'll start messaging make them again.
Yeah.
Enough, well,
You know what? That's not the worst idea I've ever heard. If we can get enough people to convince those guys to make a run.
money talks and bullshit walks and marathon.
Yes, quite.
Give them what they need, which is demand.
Yes. So, there's that. So, I think we'd probably best call it at this point, because this has been a hell of a podcast. Quite possibly a record for the longest podcast we've done.
I'll take that.
Yeah, winner. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Adam Steele, and this has been Oliver.
Thank you very
Oliver
much.
Shillito. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been a fantastic podcast.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on, and thanks everyone for watching and tuning in and asking your questions and all that good.
Yeah, so I'll be leaving a link in the description to Oliver's YouTube channel and the the end screen at the end, which very few people are going to get to with a 3-hour podcast. My word. But yes, give us a like on this video. Go and check out Oliver's channel, because he does make really good videos, and that's how I ended up knowing who Oliver was.
Yep, and soon we're going to be making some Kemper reamping videos.
We are indeed. I'm really looking forward to that, actually. Awesome.
Yeah, great, good times.
Nice one.
Cool.
Cheers,
Thanks,
dude. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you 8 p.m. UK time next week, and hopefully Liam will be back with us. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Hit the like button. Thank you. Goodbye.